Sarakoya, and the grateful cultivator, Reba, and our regular co-host, Notso Dog. And today our guest is Billie from Emerald Alchemy. And so we're excited to have you on today. And Reba, why don't you just take it away?
Yay! Billie, Emerald Alchemy, Sarah Koya, Notso Dog, Gabby. We've got the whole crew
Our
here
regular
right now.
co-host.
We do. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here.
It's feeling
Yeah.
good to have such a full room with such wonderful people.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Reba,
Oh,
you suggested we get Billie on here today. What do you know? Like, what made you choose Billie as our guest today?
It was really important to me to make sure we have people share stories about cannabis that I consider OGs in the game. Before we fully like, because it's easy to find current people in cannabis that have a big presence or on social media or whatever. So I felt it was really, really important to have the OGs represented, and I look at Billie as one of the OGs in the Prop 215 California medical cannabis community. We called it a community. Now it's an industry. And she was a medicine maker, a farmer. She was so inspirational to me. She had everything that I still hope to have one day, like beautiful greenhouse, happy plants, sunshine, all these things, right? So, not to mention, I find her to be an amazing human being and like someone I'm really happy to call a friend. So, I'm very happy to have her on.
That's great. So, medicine maker. That's exciting. So,
so
Billie.
Wow. Thank you, Reba.
glad you.
I'm so
Yeah.
grateful to be here. So nice.
Um,
so Billie, tell us a little
To
bit
get to
about your
reminisce.
story.
Yeah.
T-
mhm.
Tell us a little bit
Sure.
about your story. Try to start as early on as you can, like your first exposures to
Yeah.
cannabis.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on. This is so cool to get to, revisit this part of my life that feels like another lifetime at this point. And it's so, the work that I did with Emerald Alchemy is some of the things that I'm most proud of in my life. So yeah, it was a really precious time in the going through building that business and then having to sort of put it to rest, although it's not totally gone. Is was really really quite phenomenal and intense. But I was a child of nature. I grew up in the mountains and loved nature. I was a really quiet kid and had a you know was drawn to anything natural and wild and free. So, one thing I wanted to first seed this conversation with is that I was drawn to growing cannabis because of my love for the wild and freedom and human connection and medicine that's of the earth and
Mhm.
that's really quite spiritual and godly. But yeah, I just I'm from California, but I had left for a while to travel around the world, and I came back and was offered a trimming position up in Humboldt, and it was I had been working at a health food store in the vitamin department, so I was kind of like this young hippie girl that
Mhm.
went got invited to this crazy mountain up in the middle of absolute nowhere, riding ATVs on dirt roads to get to just this spot
Mhm.
that you'd never find on your own,
Mhm.
And yeah. And so that's where it started. I um and at like it was interesting. I came upon this scene and there were hundreds of people working and huge trimming carports. And I remember I was introduced, I was shown where I was going to be working, and they opened up the carport, and there were, rows of tables all the way down, this connected carports connected to each other, and maybe 50 trimmers, and death metal was blasting. And there was just like everybody was totally connected and working and laughing, and just had this vibe that was like, I thought, wow, this is living. Like this is real. I just couldn't. And I loved it. And I was a total kind of an outsider because I was a little green, right? I was kind of, yeah. But I had, I met a lot of friends there, and that's where I learned how to make hash. And yeah, what else? I learned how to
What
make
type of
hash.
hash was
So they
that?
had, right. So they were doing, well, we called it bubble hash, So that was ice hash. And we were, there was leftover trim, and in those days people would throw their trim down the hill. They didn't, there was so much of it. There was no, and there was not much of a market for hash. So people, and that's been kind of my journey, is creating value out of something that people aren't, um haven't really caught on to yet. And so I kind of caught this wave of hash and got really, really fascinated and into making great hash, and all the details of that. So, but when okay, so we had these small bags, right? We had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of trim to process, and they had these 5-gallon bags to do it all. And I was, and I it wasn't easy to operate in those areas, and I was made a part of the team to do the hash, and I was going to receive a percentage of what we made. And I was like, oh my gosh, I kind of want to get back to civilization. I don't want to be here for 6 months, 6 more months or something. So I went into town and found those giant bags, and I helped upgrade the process to process, uh, you know 10 times more trim at the same time, or a little more. And that's kind of where my journey started. And I yeah, so I began to try to perfect making really good hash in a little larger quantities. Yeah. Yeah.
What,
If you
can
don't,
I
Um
ask
if you
you a
don't mind me
question though?
asking, what
there's so
year was
much there.
that?
I Yeah.
What year was that?
I think that was 2000. It was only 2009. I felt like I don't, when you call me an OG, but I don't really feel like an OG. It was like 2009. I think we worked on that. So that wasn't that long ago, really. There was The people I were working for had been doing this for decades. Never, so I
And
guess
what part of
as
Humboldt?
far as solventless, what part of Humboldt? That was out, um was it Dunbar? Wait, I mean,
Dinsmore?
so many I've been yeah, kind of out that way. Out What highway is that?
Dunsmuir, Bridgeville,
Dunsmuir? Yeah, it
Dinsmore,
was Humboldt. It was Humboldt, just before you get
Highway 36?
out the
up
36.
so many roads. Yes, it was out 36, right. Eel River area. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I I yeah. I've kind of
I'm
been
curious
everywhere in
I'm
this journey up, so I don't remember. Yeah.
about your bags. When you said you went and got bigger hash bags in town, did they have like Mila's
Yeah.
bags? What were the big bags they had?
There was the gentleman that was making bags out of Canada. It was Bubble
Bubble Man?
Man. Who is that?
Yeah,
What, I'm sorry,
it's
guys. It's
Bubble
been
Man.
so long. Yeah, Bubble Man. Yeah, yeah. And those bags were 25-gallon, I believe, or 30-gallon bags. And it was kind of cool. Like, I have a math mind, so I yeah, I created this process where we could concentrate we did several stages of concentration and filtering that was, yeah, just made sense to me. And that ended up being like, it was a little bit of a mystery as I went down my journey of making hash. And now I see most people that are doing large quantity jobs kind of using that similar method. But I did learn from two folks that were at that training that did the process with the bags, and then I just kind of, yeah, perfected my way. Tell me if you if you want to get into details.
We want all the details.
Someone had mentioned that you were aging your hash for long periods, and then you had like you were aware of how long you'd been aging batches, and then that was like one of the things about your medicine that somebody was commenting on.
Yeah,
So, to
yeah,
me, it was
yeah.
like it's like wine or something. I'm aging this hash, and you know. Was there a
Yeah.
point where you felt like it was like the best quality product from when you started aging it? Like how long did you typically age it?
Point. Well, I'll tell you this. I think that, as long as you're paying attention to the, I mean, I think hash can last forever, and I would argue that it just gets better and better as long as it's kept in the right conditions, right? So as long as you're
Mm-hmm.
keeping it in cool, dry, storage, cool, dark, dry storage. That's, this is what plant material does best in. And then, oh
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I think that there are um, sort of chemical changes within the hash, right? There's been
Mm-hmm.
testing done regarding like the THC will decarb a little bit
Loses
as
moisture.
it ages.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so there is an alchemical sort of natural process that happens then, but I think you want to, in order to preserve the integrity and the aging, you want to keep it in those conditions. Right. And I'll say this, like, I I was able to get really, really good material. We all know this now. We're looking at like hash is just the last, like the art of making hash is sort of the last part of a quality product. You're starting with genetics. We all know this now.
Mm-hmm.
Good genetics, and then to know your genetics and what's going to do what, right? What's
Mm-hmm.
how your trichomes are going to form together, and then um yeah, and then how you're going to use it in the end, at the end process. So yeah, sorry, you know what, you guys, I haven't talked about this for 10 years almost, like, or maybe 8, yeah, 10 years. It's, yeah, I've really, yeah. So
Yeah.
let's see here. Mm. Yeah, so there's genetics and then your grower, and of course you just always want to have an organic process all the way through. And the I was super passionate about keeping in contact with my hands with
Mm-hmm.
the material,
Mm-hmm.
and and that was kind of a like a that was just, I guess, my claim to fame. I guess I only used my hands to stir and mix the material, and kind of, I felt like there was a spiritual component to that, where perhaps, even my biofield was interacting with this material the whole way through. And now we're learning, about that. We have science to prove how our energetic body is interacting with the water in the plants, right? And so we have very clear science on this. Um, and I was an advocate for, you know, breeding your own material and growing your own material and then processing your own material and having that heart connection all the way through. And I would even claim that people that tried my products felt the energy that the intention, it's our intent is so important in the
Yeah.
craft that we do in this world. And that was felt in the product. Yeah, I'm such a huge advocate for that. Our
No.
you know, our special spark and our relationship with this plant it's everything. And I just
Yeah.
hope that we can preserve this, you know, and the, you know, as women, we really, not to say that men don't have this connection, but we have such a creative force within us and a connection to producing medicine. It all that in it this translates through biofield and water, right? Um, yeah.
Billy, I remember when you were making your hash, you had a squad of ladies. This is when you were more established, right? Like
Yeah.
not in the beginning. You had this beautiful greenhouse. You had a solar powered generator that would fire up to keep your stuff in veg, right? You had a
It was
squad of
solar.
beautiful goddess women working with you. And I recall watching you, you were showing your process of washing, making hash. And it was like, this is what stood out so much in a time when men were really dominating with brands, right? You had a brand. And this is why I call you an OG.
Yeah.
You had a brand, a recognizable brand as a woman in a time when it was mostly men pushing brands out there. And there you are, your ladies in your shorts because it's hot, not because you're trying to be sexy. It's just freaking hot out. Okay. And you're like washing hash with your hands in the ice, mixing. There's not a work bag. You're touching all the material. And it was like you would do these full moon washes. And I just felt like it was the most beautiful expression of making medicine with cannabis. And it really impacted me for sure. I loved watching that process and that you
This is the
shared it.
alchemy side, right? This is the alchemy. You're talking about how you get the love in there, and you have that relationship
Yeah.
with the plant, and it can carry over into the people that you're giving the offering to. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah. Like, does that ring true for you
Yeah,
guys?
absolutely.
Gals?
I mean,
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's
on
love
a
in craft cannabis that you can't find in a large facility, I don't think, you know.
one thing I think really strongly about in all forms of growing, and I guess it would apply to extraction too, is that when you're a bit gentle, you know, when you're not pushing things
Oh,
to the max. Like I think a lot of people, like when they wanted to make water hash, they wanted to get it done quickly and they wanted to be aggressive. And some people would bring like you know, like they would do, you know, they would stir it really aggressively, or they would get like
Like with a
mechanical
drill. Like with a
drills
drill,
to
right?
spin it
A
around and
oh
drill
stuff.
with a
yeah.
paint mixer.
They were
And
doing that.
while you might
Yeah.
get more, like it sounds to me like with your hands and stuff like that, separate from like the connection part you were speaking of, it was just very gentle agitation to separate the resin from the plant material, you know. And a lot of people learned later on that if you want really high quality hash, gentle is the name of the game when it comes to water. You really want a gentle extraction process. One thing I wanted to say before I forgot is you might not think of yourself as an OG or something like that when it comes to '09, but I will say, and I can't remember if this is true, I do think right around then is when the hash revolution really started happening in cannabis.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
when you first started making it, like because I really feel like when people, like, I'm going to use some terms here or whatever, but when people started getting like glass bangers or they started getting nails, or like when Gabby and I first started smoking hash, it was like you would smear it on top of your cannabis. You know, like there
Oh,
wasn't all the gear that went along with being able to smoke pure hash. We didn't have nails. We didn't have heated elements. We didn't have anything like that. And I feel like '09, 2010, 2011 is when a lot of that stuff started appearing and people started figuring out new ways to consume hash.
You remember the old like
Innovation.
thick brick hash that looked like chocolate bars, and you would have to like flake it up?
Very much
That was
so.
good hash.
So when I used to get that hash in New York,
Yeah.
it was fake.
Oh
So
no, this stuff wasn't.
like I mean
no.
I you know maybe what didn't have the right connections for that type of hash, but
Yeah.
what we used to get was the Jamaican hash oil,
Oh
and it
yeah,
would be like
Yeah.
green
Mhm.
or honey oil,
Huh.
honey
and
oil.
and
Wow.
we used to coat the papers with it, and this was in the 80s. So here comes time for the old jokes. But
Oh man, how
but
old is
yeah, so
Gabby?
we used to coat the papers with this honey oil, and the joint would become translucent,
Yeah.
like because like it was just, and like we were trying to not
Oh,
put that much oil on it, but it was impossible. Like you know, you put a little drop on there, and you'd heat up a knife just to spread it, and it would just be like it was the wrong way to smoke the product, you know. But we didn't have anything else at the time.
Did you hot knife?
wow.
Did you
We
ever hot knife?
hot knifed it.
Yeah, we
The other
hot
thing we
knifed.
did was
Put
we
the
we
put the
did
needle under
the
the
coals,
glass.
Yeah.
also the coals, yeah.
Oh, the
But
coals.
you
I
know,
actually still like that method. The needle
Hey,
under the glass,
it
and then you
works,
move the
dude. You
glass. That's
put
a
the
great
hash on
hotel.
put the needle through the cardboard, put the hash on the needle. You light it on
That's a
fire, put
great
the glass
hotel
over
room
it.
way, for sure.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
dude.
under the glass. It's like a little
Yeah,
sip.
that's it. Yeah, you just
I
Oh,
mean,
you
don't
need
one
to
other
take
slide the
out the
glass.
cardboard
the
and
the
put it
On
on.
your
modern
cup of tea.
sipper,
one
dude,
Yeah,
this
other
is like the
thought.
modern version of that.
yeah,
One
that's
other
it.
thought
I
I
fucking
had real
love this
quick was
thing. These
people
guys
should
got to
know that
start paying me because I use this. At least get me a free one. I use
one
this
of
on
the
every
There you
damn
go.
show.
Right?
Where's
Yeah,
one
I
of the
Gabby's
thought maybe you
reasons
were
people
trying out
used
their
to
product there, Gabby.
throw their trim down the hill was because cops were dicks.
Yeah,
And if they caught you with
Mm,
100 or
yeah,
200 pounds of trim, they would just be like, that's actual weed. We
yeah,
just caught you
right.
with X amount. And so before people really figured out a good use for it, a lot of growers viewed it as just like a risk,
yeah.
Yeah.
But you know
Even
running
what?
having a ton
around.
of dirt. I remember
But you
people
know
going
what?
out to dump all their dirt on the side of the road in the middle of the
Yeah.
night. You know, what are you guys doing? We're moving all these heavy tubs of dirt. What? We're going to go dump them over the hill. All right.
Actually, you know what I just
Yeah.
realized, Natsu Dog?
Huh.
It's Billie's fault and people like Billie that actually proved that it was cannabis, right? Because we used to be like, this is trash, can't do nothing with this. And
Oh,
then Billie, she's got to go and prove, no, this isn't trash. This is like, we're
This
going to
is
make the
yeah,
ash.
highest quality medicine. So it was actually Billie's fault that we were getting so much heat from the cops for the trim because it is cannabis.
totally.
So,
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
But so just to follow
Oh,
up on that, would
man.
you say when you started making water hash, if you can recall, did they have like the nails and the bank, like all the like? Was that still something? Was that something that was just coming out then? Like, how would you smoke the hash you made? Let's put it that way, right? Like, what was the way when
Yeah,
you
no,
first
I think
started making it?
yeah, that came out all the fancy quartz bangers and stuff that came out a couple years later. I think it's from my recollection. Yeah, a couple years later. So I remember seeing like these little glass vials of I think it was some butane extracted product.
Mhm.
And yeah, before when I started, I don't. Yeah, the dabbing, all this art of dabbing hadn't really formed yet. So maybe a couple years later that
Because we would just put
came
water
about.
hash on top of weed, whether it was a pipe or a bong or
Yeah,
something or like a snake in a
Yep.
joint, European style or something. But like for the
Yep.
most part, it would always be mixed
a little
because we
snake.
didn't have a.
Yep.
A little. Do you remember how there was a serious like divide in the community of like solventless versus BHO? And you kind of like, there
Yeah.
was a cultural divide on that. And people really snubbed their noses down at BHO processors and all that. And there was like,
Right.
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
We
like, what
we
are you guys
battled for
smoking at
sure.
that
We're
point? You know, there was like e-octane, you know, all kinds of weird extraction products that were being marketed, and some of them were not very healthy. You know, I think we can choose something besides
yeah.
petroleum products to extract our herb, right? Because that shit's
Yeah.
not healthy, you know. So
Yeah, like the process of making butane is pretty gross if you
yeah.
look into it. But then there's also butane that people started to use that was distilled. I think you would get distilled. Although I'm not, I
Huh.
never made the product, so I'm not an expert. But yeah, but we definitely had like we were like two different teams kind of battling
Hmm.
against each other, and there was some fun criticism and pushing each other to do better. I think like maybe if there was somebody that was super righteous about their solventless hash and could like sort of um um criticize bad butane, I think we each made each other better, which was kind of cool. You know,
Yeah, it
they're
motivated them to get to that 0 ppm so
get
they could be like,
clean
well,
to
fuck
get,
you, we have
yes,
0
yeah,
ppm,
and
so we're just as good as you.
use a clean solvent. Yeah. So
Hmm.
but the solventless was just it just blew up. It just became this incredible art. Just so, and it was so cool to be a part of, like all the details of perfecting every the process was like this of dabbing back then in the quartz nails was like this Japanese tea ceremony, you know. And I hope people still do this. I hope that
Oh
that's
yeah.
you know,
You have the powder
or
and then
maybe
you
we could
have
bring
to
it
like
back again. Sorry.
you have to get out your parchment and you put your nice ice wax on your parchment and then you fold it and you press it out and you get your nice little flag of your perfect little hash and you put in your perfect little, it is a tea ceremony. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
We had a friend in
So,
California. We used to get. He had one of those hash coin press things, you know. So he would take like his leftover bubble
oh,
or his very good, like top shelf bubble, and like put it on there and crank that shit down. And if you were lucky, you might be able to get one of them. They were always like just top shelf. You know, we would just crumble it, put it on top of the bowl or something.
You
It was really
reminded me
good
of
shit.
that stuff just
cool.
now, and we made that with our. That was like the first thing that we ever made was dry sift,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we used to
Oh,
get those things that
smash
would
it
press
yeah.
it,
down.
that would press
Mm-hmm.
it into a coin.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
shit was the best,
Yeah,
you know. Yeah,
that's like
and
the growers
not anything that you could.
creme
I
la
mean,
creme,
it's
you
not even
know.
anything that you could share because we never had that much. Like, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
to make a coin, that's a significant amount
Yeah, it was probably
of
an ounce
hash.
or like half ounce or ounce coin.
I
That's
don't know. I don't know,
It's like
but
Trailer
yeah.
Park Boys.
And one thing that I'm
But,
remembering now is like we would press it too much, right?
yeah.
Because like you could just twist that thing
right.
and just press it too much. But like if we would have just like pressed it not so much, then we could like maybe like flake it off.
Break it
You
apart
know,
better.
well, just easier to
Yeah.
like not have like a giant chunk that becomes just like a hot coal. Like if you
Yeah, I
didn't,
hear you.
but honestly, I want to get one of those coins. I want to get one of those things now and make that now.
Yeah, man.
You know,
Yeah.
and if you think about it, I mean,
Get back.
the Frenchy cannoli method when he gets the bottle and it's hot and he's rolling in it.
Yeah.
Like I'm just wondering, like you can warm that thing up,
Yeah, dude.
twist
That's the
it,
kind of
you
hash I
know.
was talking about. Would be like almost like chocolate color on the outside and you break it and it would be like a
Oh,
finer color of tan on the inside. And it was definitely coming from Europe in the early 90s. Um,
Yeah, I remember that. That was
that
it
shit
had a
was
star
good.
on it. It came with a star on it.
Ours sometimes looked like chocolate bars. They were, you know, clever people figuring out how to move medicine around the world in times that were harder than now. So, right.
Billie, did you use
Yeah.
Frenchy Cannoli's technique when you were making hash, or was it just like they had a process on the farm that they showed you and then you just kind of showed them how to do more at once kind of thing and go from there? Like, it's a lot of
Yeah, kind
questions.
of like that. I mean, I didn't know Frenchie until I met him years and years after I started making hash. I don't, yeah, I met him like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years after I began. And yeah, I remember that it was so sweet. I met him at the farmers market at Area 101. Pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, and it was just um really special to get, talk to him and get his approval. And because I was making pressed hash first, I pressed everything, and
Mhm.
then I kind of ventured out into to leaving some products unpressed. But yeah, there, Frenchie, I I I think our processes are similar,
Yeah, it looks
but
like
I
it when you
never
look.
learned his process.
I think you
Yeah,
intuitively
yeah,
just kind
it's
of
amazing.
found that way, you know.
Yeah.
Talk about the
So,
farmers markets because not everyone here knows what that is. The farmers markets at
oh,
101. Yeah.
yeah, the Area 101 farmers
Yeah.
markets. Yeah, it was so sweet. It was just that those, I just absolutely adored going to those and getting to, we got to just be farmers and be with our community. And there wasn't this like insane regulation and overreach of control. I mean, and I like, I yeah, and it's sad to think that that can no longer happen really out in the open. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe can that happen anywhere in the United States? Or is that the
It
farmers
goes in
markets for
waves.
cannabis? No.
So
It
we
goes in
have
Yeah.
them in
Okay.
waves.
Ohio. We're about to have our last one this weekend in Cleveland. Anybody in Ohio thinking about attending one, you can go to ohiocannabis.com. But yeah,
Oh
since
wow.
we had legalization in 23, we've been able to have these little markets where people can come and have a consultation with some legacy growers about their clones, and then they can share their home grow and take home with them some clones to start their outdoor or whatever. But now with this
Wow.
House Bill 56 that's going to affect in late March, all of that is being pulled back from us. So I keep telling Reba, and I'm always happy to talk to you guys because I feel like everything that's happened in California is a cautionary tale for our legalization strategy. I think the same big cannabis, big alcohol players that want to have all the money and not let the small legacy growers have any kind of foot in the door are taking this replicated pattern state by state and wiping out what used to be, a really cool thing like your farmers market, our farmers market. When there's nothing that's happened that has warranted such a change. So that leads me to ask you, like, why don't you guys have your farmers markets anymore? What changed that?
This
Rules.
lobbyists. Oh wait. Oh
Rules.
yeah.
But I mean, it goes in waves. Like when I first moved here,
Yeah.
it was pretty prohibition still. Like, 215 had just passed, but for all intents and purposes, it was still illegal. But I would hear stories of like harvest parties in like Willits and like the local parks and stuff like that back in the
Mm-hmm.
70s and early 80s before it got intense. And just really quick before, just because it was mentioned, Area 101 is an area is a place north of Laytonville that this guy Tim Blake owned, and he had
Yeah.
this idea that we should slowly come out of the shadows. And so all the first, like, the Emerald Cup is a pretty famous, like,
Mm-hmm.
harvest festival / competition. All the original Emerald Cups happened at that spot in Laytonville. And he would do farmers markets, which was basically, for lack of a better term, it was sort of like a family gathering of various growers that wanted to
Mm-hmm.
show up
Yeah, that's what
and,
we're having.
exchange plants or exchange hash or trade weed
Mm-hmm.
or just see their friends out and about. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't like it was a farmer's market, but with a weed and it was sort of like it sort of happened. We had this sheriff,
Hold on. It
and we had
wasn't
this
advertised in the like San Francisco Chronicle.
no, we
Right.
had
It,
this.
it wasn't
We
like they were trying to like get a whole bunch of people there. It was more just like a local thing.
we had a combination of a sheriff and a district attorney that both decided to be pretty pro small farmer weed, and they just sort of ignored like that type of thing for a while, and so it
Hmm.
allowed it to like flourish, right? And so
Yeah.
the farm, just so people know, and then I'll shut up, the farmers market at Area 101 was like, it was a place to where people could gather that were growers or processors or trimmers or whatnot. It was sort of like a family gathering where
Yeah.
instead of being all isolated on different hills and this and that, you could sort of get together,
That's cool.
and you could chat and you could have a little booth and it would be ignored. And he would have these harvest festivals that eventually became called the Emerald Cup, where people would bring their herb and get judged and all that type of
Oh,
stuff. So that's what Area 101 was. It was like sort of like a proto, like, hash bash, farmers market competition, weed people gathering and not getting busted. That's sort of what it was. And you can still see it when you drive up the 101. You can still see Area 101. He still has a few things there, but it's kind of grown beyond.
You know,
Anyway,
that was really some of the first time that the community members that were producing cannabis products got together out in the open. And there was always music as well, and it was like a real it was an ultimate expression of our culture, to be able to do that there. So I do appreciate Tim Blake for that aspect of what Tim Blake has contributed. I'm gonna leave that there.
we had to hide in the shadows.
Yeah.
And Tim was like, what if we didn't? You know?
Yeah.
And there was a time when, we sort of like were locally ignored, and it worked. And it was pretty neat,
Thank
you
goodness.
know? And
It was
all
beautiful.
that.
Yeah.
I
The
just wanted to
place,
give people context that probably didn't know when you
They don't
mentioned
know.
Area 101 and
They
all
don't know
that. Like,
like driving on the 101, you see the eyes painted,
mm-hmm.
you see the eyes.
I mean, I think when you're driving, and it was always a weird place. Like before there was even legal cannabis there. Like it was always Area 101. It was like a landmark when you're driving, through Mendocino County towards Humboldt. You're gonna pass Area 101. It's
He used
like,
to throw parties and raves there,
yeah. Like I said, it
and
was
he would
always just
throw
like a little
harvest
crazy
parties.
place.
And there would be a bunch of trimmers in town because it was that time of year, and they would be looking for something to do off their hill, So he kind of had, let's face it, like northern Mendo, southern Humboldt, there's not a lot of that kind of stuff going on. There's not a lot of places to gather. So, anyway,
And also centrally located in that effect. Like it was on the 101 at least. You didn't have to
yeah.
like drive up some crazy road, to get to the party. If the 101 was open, you could make it there. So
Yeah, man, I remember going in there before the farmers markets happened. It was like a weird, did they have crystals or snacks? I
yeah,
don't know. It was like an
exactly. It
odd
was just
little
always a
pull-off.
weird place, which weird in the best way.
Yeah, totally. A good stop between Humboldt and the city.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was rootsy. It was alive. Our community was built from the heart, our hearts. And like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to get into this now, but we're this profession was, I would say, is systematically conquered by big business, just using lobbying and policy to eliminate competition. And that's kind of happening in most areas of business these days.
Everywhere.
So,
Yeah.
but
Big,
yeah,
big
that's
ag
everywhere.
model.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
ag model, so getting rid of all the small
Yeah, it's
farms.
unfortunate because the consumer ends up with the inferior product at a higher market rate.
Yeah. I don't
And
even.
it takes away our culture and our community that we've built up. Like we should be able to have gatherings and we should be able to smoke in public places, like on beaches or in parks when we're all together and we're not, we're being respectful. We're not around teenagers and whoever. There shouldn't, you know, there should be some justification for the lockdown on small business, and I really haven't seen one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, two things on that. I feel like um back when it was much more restricted or legal, the only thing you had to do was not get caught, and then it was like your rules were your rules. It was sort of like a hippie deadlock almost in that regard. It was like there was self-imposed rules, community rules. And I also think
Mm-hmm.
like lots of people wanted it to be legal, and they wanted people to not get into all this serious trouble, but we didn't really think about what legal meant, like day 2, day 3, second and third order effects, how that would work, what would happen once it was legal. Because I would say probably everyone on this podcast at the moment, it was like an alternative way to make a living in the world that was really awesome, and you got to spend a lot of time around family and friends and nature, and you had a lot of fun, and the man couldn't really tell you what to do. And then we made it legal, and the man was like, oh, this is cool, we should take this.
Mm,
And a lot of our
yeah.
complaints are like, no, 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 this is our thing, no, 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 you can't take
Yeah.
this. And they were like, no, this is what we do.
Yeah.
We lobby, and so we got
Yeah.
into a world that we were not very familiar with.
Yeah.
Like
So
that was
legal
not our.
doesn't mean free,
Right.
unfortunately.
Legal
And
Good
means
what we
point.
really
tax.
need is freedom for the plant. And the only way we're going to get that is through like amendment rights, like a rights based law where we have an agricultural right to this product, we have a medicinal right to this product, and it should be equal access and to opportunities of employment, of ownership, and of possession in your home. And there shouldn't be all of these rules. But as long as we have something that is statutory, we're going to have lobbyists that come in and buy their way to the top.
What I see in a lot of states is this thing called what I call, it's not me, but like regulatory capture, where they put in enough layers of rules
Mm-hmm.
that you end up with these certain groups that get to run it because they're the only ones that can like meet all those
Absolutely.
rules.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
a bunch of.
After Ohio voted down what would have been a weed monopoly brought to you by 10 millionaires in 2015, Ohio voted no. So in 2016, they went through the back door of our legislature, who suddenly wanted to pass a medical marijuana law before the people working on the constitutional amendment had a chance to make real progress on our side. So they passed what became our medical law. And guess what you had to have? You had to have exactly what all the 10 pop bosses had in order to get one of those medical licenses. You couldn't use your well-made piece of property that you already had. You had to have all this brand new facility stuff that these guys had
Right.
already bought because they were so confident that in 2015, Ohio was going to be so desperate to legalize cannabis that we were going to vote for a monopoly. But even, we've been tooth and nail to try to maintain our rights. And the law that we voted on in 23 included 50 new micro grows. It included social equity. And they've come along with this House Bill 56, which again goes into effect on March 20th. And none of the social equity money is allocated, and no new grows or micro butteries are going to happen. So, that's why
I think the
I was
most
thinking
important
about you,
thing.
Billy, because I've noticed that you have a different profession now. And we haven't talked a whole lot about your Emerald Alchemy at your old job, but now you're raising goats. So I can
Oh,
assume that you were priced out of the market there and didn't have access to continuing your hash business. Is that
um,
were there
I mean, I
too many
tried
rules?
so hard. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. The journey of my brand and my business kind of being put to rest was just, gosh, it was hell going through, honestly. It was so
Yeah.
tragic. I put my heart and soul into building that and building, you know, the art of what I did. And people love my products, and I was unable to move forward with my integrity, and with the, that our laws wanted to chop everything up. You basically, in order to get licensed, you had to have, I think, $250,000 in some account for your business,
Right.
and then, I mean, processing facilities. I mean, it was, you would have had to received millions of dollars in investment, and then who are your investors and what are they going to want, and I just, oh my god,
Yeah.
trying to go through,
Yeah. It's
navigate
so
through that. It took
ridiculous.
years of a
Mhm.
slow death.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so it was really traumatic for me. I went through just terrible experiences. Because it causes all of this friction and dysfunction within your business. Like trying to work with people when we're trying to hold on to
Right.
a system or
Yeah.
our lives that are being conquered. It caused all these horrible people that act horribly, people that worked for you now hate you, or when you're just trying to figure out how to move forward
Mhm.
in an impossible system that was created by the law. They created
Right.
this terrible, and I know people who, yeah, their lives just went absolutely downhill once they lost their livelihood from that law.
Mhm.
And it's yeah, it's so sad when policy gets involved in farmers' lives.
Yeah.
It's because we're so connected. It's our religion. It's our spirit.
It
So,
is. It's
anyways,
our
yeah,
community.
I
Mhm.
yeah, I was very, I was in it. Yeah, it was hard for me. So I actually I went back to school. I put myself through school to study psychology, and I got these goats while I was going to school, and they healed me. I was walking these goats through the forest every day, and these little like wild, amazing creatures. They were like they replaced cannabis for me, and they're so much like cannabis. They're so engaging, and I wanted to share this too. I
Yeah.
wanted to get everybody's take on this, though, before we go into that. Isn't Did you find, especially when you were growing from seed, like, I felt like they were my pets, like they were my family. And I can remember specific
Mhm.
plants that just deserved their own name
They're
out
good.
of this seed.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
were like the dog plants. I talked to them, and they felt like they talked back to me. They listened to me, cannabis, like a
Mhm.
dog, or like my goats. And I relate. Yeah. So let's hear.
I agree.
I yeah,
I
Yeah.
think cannabis, yeah, highly
I think every good
sophisticated.
gardener has to build a relationship with their plants, right? Like
Mhm.
for me, being a guy, I kind of felt, and I was growing females, I kind of felt like it was almost like dating. I needed to figure out what this specific like girl needed to make, like what made her laugh, what made her happy, what made her unhappy. Like were there allergies involved? Could I do something that would make her really mad or upset, you know? And so in order to be a good farmer, you kind of had to be in tune with your plant,
With
which
your
meant you had to
lady.
be in
Mhm.
tune with her like moods or what made her happy or sad. And it wasn't all the
Definitely.
same. A lot of times, especially in modern times, people want to get some kind of like, this is how you grow recipe. And they think that they can
Yeah.
apply that recipe to all these different females, and all these different girls will just respond to the same inputs or the same techniques. And it's not the case. You know, it's not. Some
Mm.
things, some, you know, like, and so figuring that kind of thing out, like it really is. It's like a relationship. And I feel like
Yeah.
most people that are good gardeners end up developing a relationship with their plants. Because if you're not
Yes.
in tune with what your plant needs, you probably won't get her to express to her fullest extent. And then she won't be as
Hmm.
happy, and then you don't have as good a weed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
I mean,
Amen.
that's just my like hippie dude take on it or whatever, but it's really about like, you know, how do I make her happy? What does she need? Does she need more food? Does she need less food? Does she like light? Does she like this kind of soil? Does she like this? You know, is she
Yeah.
prone to illness when it comes to mold? And I have to like address that, you know, like all that kind of. So really, it is like a relationship, you know. And when you grow,
Hmm.
when you're from clone, you can at least like it's like a long-term relationship. You can kind of figure out what she needs over time and then give it to her. When it's from seed, it's like she's new and you have a limited amount of time to keep her happy and you don't really know her yet, you know. And so
Cool. Interesting.
But you
I see a
know,
lot of people applying cookie cutter growing techniques without
Yeah.
thinking about how do I keep her happy? What might she need to be happy? You know? And yeah, I apply that all the time. I really do. I think about that. Like that's how I kind of approach it. Because it's not the same. Women aren't the same. You know, plants aren't the
Yeah.
same. One plant, you might give it a certain amount of food and it loves you. The other plant, it might not like that much food or it might not be enough food, you know, or, you know, so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's it
Yeah.
is a bit of a relationship.
the one thing I'll
Agreed.
say about
Yeah.
seedlings is that because you made it sound like seedlings were very unforgiving. I think, you know, you don't have as much information on how the plant's going to grow, but they do have some like just vigor and desire to grow and desire to please you. And so to me,
Mm.
seedlings can be more forgiving in a lot of ways as far as like just because they're just so vigorous, you know. But what
I
I
mean,
wanted
the
to say
other,
as far as I named all my original plants, like when I first started seeds, I named them all girls' names. Okay.
Oh.
I had one specifically, the Francine, which I ended up keeping, but I had Francine, Christine, Michelle, like, and it's so funny because I was the one being sexist and stupid at the time because, I had no interest in males. All the males, that we got on those initial seeds that we popped, they got thrown away, right? So I named all my plants female names in just like visualization. I'm gonna like visualize that all these plants are gonna turn out and be female. And of course, that didn't happen. But, I don't remember what percentage I got, but it probably was way more than 50% female because of how much stuff was just made by like a random herm. So,
Oh, it's be
I,
like, oh, that big one is really nice, cool, and then it's usually the male. I'll be like,
Hey, hey
yeah,
guys,
yeah.
I'm curious. Am I here still in the
You
chat?
were double
you
screen for
are.
a minute. I was seeing
I don't know
double
what's
Reba,
happening.
but now
I
you
hear
seem to
you.
be one.
I'm
Yeah.
having
Oh,
technical
I hear you, Reba.
difficulties. Do you
I
guys
hear you.
see
There was
me?
a minute where you
yeah,
popped up
you're there. It's
twice.
fine.
Yeah, I had double vision on
I had
Reba
double
also.
vision of Reba twice,
I
Ah!
don't
and
think
now
that
you're
happened.
back to just normal.
I don't
Now
think
you're
that
back.
happened on YouTube. That was
Are
No.
just
we
maybe
normal
just on
now? Like,
Riverside.
can you
Yeah,
actually
I
You're,
think it
yeah,
was
see
just
me?
our
You're
I
fine.
screen.
can see you and hear you 100%.
Oh my God, I missed you guys. I was like in a technological K-hole trying to figure this out. I'm back. Hello.
Were you trying to talk to us and we didn't hear you?
Things were happening. It was like my,
Things were happening.
Yeah,
you
she
know, we don't need to
texted that
divert
her
too much.
internet was out.
Whatever. I missed
Can
you
I?
guys.
I want to ask
Right.
Billy a question that like
Oh,
scrolls back to the beginning when you were first making water hash. Like, cause it was like
yeah.
long before like freeze dryers and all this like more modern tech. How were
Yeah.
you drying your hash, or were you? Like, were you microplaning it? Were you like spreading it out over cardboard? Were you like pushing it between
Hmm.
paper to get like some of that excess water out? I'm just curious. I'm always curious because like hash went through like all these different like like times where like your SOP was like common, and then someone would figure something out and it would change, and then someone would figure something out and it would
Totally.
change again, you know, and it was like pretty quick.
Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah. No, that's a fun question. Totally. Like, so when I on my first batch of hash up there on at by the Eel River or Mad River, I don't know. Um, we dried on cardboard, and
Cardboard, yeah.
but then like when you had when you got like a really like sticky hash, you'd scrape the hash up after it was dried, and you'd have little cardboard particles in your hash. So we had to change that. um, so yeah, so we started with cardboard, and then
In the
I
open
just
air, like
I mean,
in
you
the
know,
air.
I never did microplaning. That was too much. I thought that was kind of like harsh. I didn't want to, I don't know. Yeah. Oh, I used a sieve. I used a sieve to kind of tap. I would put the hash ball in a sieve. That was down the road, kind of years down the road. Cause yeah, we did cardboard and a credit card, right? With
Cool.
and then I used like parchment paper and a sieve where you just gently tap the sieve to get the hash to fall gently onto the parchment. And then you'd have it in your cool room with a maybe a dehum. But even there was some art to the dehum. You didn't want your dehum to be on too low of a setting to because you didn't want to dry out your hash too fast. um you might run into like the outer layer of your little hash particle drying too fast, and then you have an inner layer that's not dried, or yeah.
So you try to slow
So
it down as much as possible, the cure,
the cure was
resin.
yeah, yeah, the cure, that process of getting a good cure and dried out properly, but not too dry. It was quite yeah, an evolution there. But it kind of
And then
went from the credit card on cardboard to a sieve on our racks with a parchment.
Which is the traditional like bubble hash style, right? That's like bubble hash recipe is using the
I
sieve.
think
You're not
so.
like microplaning the patty. You're just sieving it. And then like
No.
that microplaning of the patty is what upped it up to ice wax. That was like
mm-hmm.
the push up there.
You ever
Well,
use a
Oh,
rolling
I mean,
pin?
the
right.
early problem when you did water hash was getting all the moisture or getting all the water out of the hash. I mean,
So you
speaking of
could
Frenchie, I don't want to
separate.
like, I mean, Frenchie was a great hash maker, and so I'm not trying to like diss him at all here, but like the very first gram of hash he ever gave me, I like opened it up later at home and it had like white filaments of mold coming off it because it had been packaged too wet, and then it was sealed in this tight little jar. And so a lot of times when people were making water hash, it was like, you know, traditionally it was used fresh, or it wasn't necessarily sealed the way we seal it, you know, and left alone for that length of time. And so people now, when they're looking at hash, it's like there was all this experimentation, which it seems like Billy, like that had to be done. Like one thing I wanted you to talk about too was that, like, if you're using those bags, learning what bag number got you what kind of hash and
Right.
what
Like try
Yes.
cooking
strains.
some like 220. You're not gonna like that. But
No, or like all of a sudden you're like,
Mm,
man, this one strain, I got this great yield out of this bag, but this next strain, most of it ended up in this
right.
different bag. And now I'm seeing differences in the heads or like the qualities. And because people didn't know that. This is all tech that like you
Yeah.
did and like you learned as you went which bag numbers were better than others, which ones had more crap in them, for lack of a better term, which ones were like
mhm.
more high grade, all that we didn't know. You know, like
Yeah.
American weed culture was flour.
Yeah.
Hash was like
Right.
this, like the very first hash I think most of us ever experienced was probably scissor hash.
Well,
trimmers trimming,
Moroccan
and then
hash. We had that on there.
prior to that, or maybe at the same time, I remember there used to be like, it was like a fat soda can, and then it had like a screen and then a space on the bottom, and you'd like put a marble or something in that middle space and just shake it up,
You're like
and then
Yeah.
freebasing hash.
I think it was, I don't think it was called Pollinator. That's Mila's brand. I
No,
don't remember
yeah.
what it was called.
Keef
but it
was
just-
easier because it didn't have the moisture. You know,
I wanted to
water
say
hash had the
something.
moisture. Huh.
About this because I don't know if this is new technology or just being brought, to more public eye, but I've heard of people doing freeze drying now with their cold water hash. But I think it's only the last year or so I saw people vacuuming the moisture out. And I was like,
Whoa.
man, that
Oh.
is so obvious.
Oh,
And so what they have,
That's
you haven't
interesting.
seen that, Billy?
I haven't seen that.
No. No.
So what
Nope,
it is
never heard
you
of it.
You have a screen, and the screen, I guess, is smaller holes in the trichomes, right? So the trichomes aren't going to go through it. And then they put the vacuum up against the backside of it, and they're just vacuuming the moisture right out of the hash. And when
Whoa.
they do that for a little bit, and then they can literally just crumble it onto a table, and it's powder,
It seems
like
aggressive.
really fast.
It seems aggressive.
Oh.
I think anything you can do to get the water content down as fast as possible is what you have to do. And
What's
I
wrong
mean,
with
it's
the freeze
just-
dryer? Why you gotta vacuum it?
well, nothing's wrong with a freeze dryer if you want to buy it. They're, not cheap.
Well, how expensive are these vacuums?
It's any vacuum. It's just
Oh,
a
you mean a
screen.
literal vacuum, like that you would use in your house?
It's just like the
Like the
plastic.
shop vac.
Yeah, a
Oh,
Like
shop
you could
vac.
use a
okay,
shop
wow.
vac
Yeah.
and pull
All
the
it is
water through it.
it's a screen. So this company sells a product,
Not
but I don't
feeling
think
it.
I don't think you need the
Oh.
product. All you need is a screen that isn't designed for letting the heads through. It's designed
Right.
for not
then
letting
you're
the heads through,
vacuuming.
and it's pulled tight. I'll find the video.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're promoting this product right now, but I think it's something that you could just make by yourself. But when I saw this, I was like, I felt so dumb because it was the most obvious thing.
You like the idea? It
I
feels
love the
weird
idea.
to me. It feels aggressive to me.
Well,
I don't know
let's
what it is
ask
about it.
let's ask somebody who knows more than me.
I don't know.
Wait, what
Billie,
do you guys
but
on the panel think about it before we
I'll
branch
find a
out?
video of it.
I think
If somebody
generally
can help me with a
speaking,
link, I'd appreciate it.
I think generally speaking that there's a whole big push now, whether it's trimming or it's hash making or whatever, to take the human labor element that might be slow and laborious to do, and like, how do we automate this? How do we make it faster? Like whether it was freeze dryers, and the thing about freeze dryers, and I'm not dissing them, but I'll just say this: when you put hash through a freeze dryer, some hash comes out tasting exactly like it went in, and some it affects the terps or it affects the flavor compounds, and so
Whoa.
as people
Mhm.
as people try to do these different processes, like one thing I'll say about BHO that I noticed is that some BHO would preserve the flavor of certain cultivars better than ice water hash,
Oh.
and some ice water hash, it wouldn't affect the flavor at all, right?
Mhm.
And so I feel like different processes shine with different things.
terpenes and stuff
Or
lean
like,
to different
for
processes
instance
better.
for any people that grew outdoor, I used to notice, I figured this out when I had a greenhouse and I had an outdoor patch, and I would grow the same strains inside and outside essentially. Sometimes in October in Mendo you'd get rain, and sometimes the strains that would get rained on, some of them would come out tasting amazing and some of them would come out tasting muted. But then the greenhouse stuff that didn't get rained on would taste phenomenal. And so I felt like certain strains, like for instance, like, stuff that was citrus or super silver haze stuff or whatever, like it could get rained on all day and it would still taste like itself. But certain gassy strains or whatever, like they didn't like getting rained on so much, and
They
like
weren't
certain
grown
elements
in
of their
rainy
flavor would
spots.
be gone.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading Rob Clark's book, Hashish, and I don't know if this is true or not, still, but he said in that book that like 25% of terpenes or flavor compounds are water soluble,
Wow.
right? So
Oh,
some
right.
strains,
Okay.
That's why
some
that
strains,
wash water looks like delicious Kool-Aid.
yeah. So
Oh.
some strains, they go through the process you're putting them through to make hash, and they come out with their terpene chain and their flavor and their quality. Like a lot of people might like, we're all old enough to know this. We used to think that keef generally tasted better, but water hash was purer and stronger, right? And it wasn't always the case.
I'd agree with that.
It wasn't always the case, but
Interesting. Yeah.
it was like possible. So I do think, and now I'll stop. But like Gabby's thing about like he disappeared looking for like his
I found
vacuum tech, but like certain strains hold up better to certain mechanical processes,
Right?
and then
So
they
watch
end up
this.
good at the end. Watch what?
I wanna
Wait,
share
He's
this
gonna
with
hold
you.
it up.
It's reminding me of the clone robot I saw last night in my feed that scares me, but we'll watch the shot back first.
We'll
Okay,
watch
hold
the
on.
shop vac hash.
Here we go with the shop back hash. This is truly unpaid advertising, and this
We're
is, I
not
think, is a
even,
German.
we don't know. This is
Okay,
just
check
educational.
it out.
Oh my God. Okay.
Watch.
Okay.
Watch.
Hold it a little bit. There you go. What?
Come back with the video.
Okay, let me start it again.
Do it again.
Let's do it again.
So they just put a bunch of wet hash
On top of a screen.
on top of
That's
a
pulled
like a
tight.
multi-layer screen, and then they attach.
They just vacuum it underneath with just like a shop vac.
Just speeding up the process,
You can
making it
see.
better.
Look at that. You can see the water. You can see the color change. Like you can literally
I just
see.
sold a
Yeah,
fucking
that's
million
pretty
of
good.
these things.
No,
And then
I
look,
don't
you can
like
see
it.
how
I'm not
you see how
selling
the
it.
product. You're like, don't
Well,
buy
I
it.
would take
Look,
like a rolling
No.
pin and try to smash it.
Time matters.
You
Time matters.
tools.
right. In this case, I think time is the enemy. Like time with that moisture in it, that
No.
excess
Then
moisture.
spread out your patty. Don't just keep in a block.
Well, what do you
Let it
think, Billy?
drip.
Tell us.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not into the vacuum. Sorry,
No?
sorry, Gabby. No, I mean,
I like technology.
Oh
I
my
said,
gosh.
I mean,
I
So
knew
what's the
Billy would agree
downside?
with me. I knew it. I could tell she was
maybe,
going to agree with me.
I guess if you're in a human environment, maybe if you're in a human environment, that might be something. I don't know. No, I don't. Again, I don't know. It's back.
How long does it take
We
you to
lost
dry
her.
out your patties?
Well, I mean, she's
Overnight.
reconnecting for
Yeah.
a second. Are you? Or maybe I am
Me?
reconnecting.
I'm
Some
Am I
reconnecting.
reconnecting?
Sorry, guys.
Amy? Is it
I'm
Sarah?
reconnecting.
I
Shoot.
Is everybody having
Am I
technical
back?
difficulties?
I think
maybe
we're all good.
Okay.
Okay.
We're all here. I will say when I used to make ice wax, it would take overnight for the hash to cure once it's spread on your parchment, on your baking sheets. It's like a 24-hour process.
Oh.
Oh. Oh, wow. Wow, that's quick.
That's what
Yeah,
I
I
was
think
thinking.
that's quick.
well,
Yeah,
I mean, I
I
also
dry for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
I remember. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's when it was graded out, separate trichomes on parchment sheets,
Okay.
24-hour process
Okay,
in a
interesting.
40-degree room. If the room's
Okay,
warm.
maybe you had a dehum in there.
Yeah, it was
Interesting.
like at like 55%, 40 degrees in the room.
55. Okay. Yeah. Cool. I mean, the moisture levels is like, yeah, that's so important. Yeah, definitely. maybe we, yeah. No to the vacuum. Yep.
No to the
Well,
vacuum.
I
It's
mean,
okay.
one thing,
I'm
you
not a
know,
hash
one
Sorry.
maker,
thing,
but to me, it looked good.
one thing I'll say about
Right
for
on.
instance, like ancient hash techniques, for instance, is like cultures that come from really dry, arid regions, like say like, you know, Morocco or Afghanistan or something, they tend to have dry sift. And then like where like Frenchie was like in India and other various places that are much more humid, they tended to have to figure out different ways of extraction because it's so humid. And like as Americans, we're pretty good
Right.
at like being able to control our environment and control our climate and stuff like that. But you kind of have to figure out a method that works for where you are and what access you have to gear.
Yeah.
California is very dry
Oh,
compared to
really?
like the East Coast,
Very
you
dry.
know?
Yeah, that's really legit. Like going to Colorado and seeing people selling humidifiers for grows was a new one on me. You know, because
Whoa.
here in Ohio we need a dehumidifier if anything ever. You know, like
My
whoa,
friends that grow personal in Colorado,
uh
they
huh,
put humidifiers in their dry room
yeah,
so
that's
they
what I'm
can keep
saying,
the humidity
right?
like up
Yeah. So,
around
but
50,
here, if you did
60%.
that,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
would
we would have
it
like nothing would ever dry. You know.
Well,
exactly.
well,
Hmm.
the thing is, Sarah, if you're growing in like a sealed room, excuse me, you name says Sarah on it, okay?
Yeah, it doesn't do that. Yeah,
I'll
it's
have to
on this
fix that for
iPad.
you. But
It thinks Sarah Claire is my first and
I'll fix
last
it.
name.
But you can't blame me for that one.
No, it's
Um,
all right. It's all right.
There we
if you're
go.
if you're in a sealed room environment, then it doesn't matter, you know, if you're in a really wet environment or a really dry environment. What happens is all of the like the air conditioning and the, you know, like when you run all these lights, you got to run a lot of air conditioning, and
Mm-hmm.
that dries out the room. And
Right.
so often a humidifier is necessary.
Hmm.
Another thing is when you're growing
Oh,
with LED lights, which is what people are doing commonly today,
Right.
you have to grow with a higher temperature and a higher humidity, particularly early in the plant's life.
I'm gonna say 100%
wow.
yes
Yeah.
on
Well,
that,
Right?
because you
lighting
saved
is
Wow.
me
providing
with
that
the heat.
temperature. Oh,
So the
Knowing that I needed to get the room hotter, because I'm doing my first LED run ever. I know that makes me sound like weird or whatever, because I've never done
makes you sound like an
LEDs.
OG.
But you know, this is the first time I've ever run LEDs, and of course I have an HPS as well on the side, because I'm not gonna fucking just roll the dice on LED the first time out. But had I not known that, Gabby, it wasn't until I got my like canopy temps up to like 85 that I started to see them really enjoy their environment, which is much higher than I would normally if I was under like an HPS situation. So that is a really good tip, is to keep your room
yeah.
warm. You've got
Well,
Yeah.
LED.
Well,
well, the
so
other
The
thing, let me
HPS
finish
would
this.
create that
The other thing
hot
is
spot and
when you,
everything stayed warmer and there was more evaporation happening, where the LED has more of an even canopy, so you don't get that hot cold switch with the lights being out and on. And that was the one of the major changes for me to learn too. It's like, wow, well now we're saving money on this LED, but we're running
Heater.
space heaters. What, you know?
one thing
Uh,
I might want to throw in there that people don't think about is that during the 215 era, when I would often have trim camps at various places, I would put like a couple simple like hydrometer in my trim room because I felt like when people were trimming and you're going to have open bags and open stuff exposed all day, like a lot of times in Mendo or Humboldt or something, if the rain hadn't come in, it could be 15 or 20% humidity in your trimming room,
Yeah.
you know? And I would add like household humidifiers to my trim room because I was like, well, I need the humidity to be like
Wow.
50%, not 15,
Keeping it
right?
perfect.
Yeah, and because you're gonna have a
Whoa.
bunch of people in there with their
Wow.
bags open, they're
And you know how to
working out of,
offset it, right? You're like, I have
they've got
this
a
many
pile,
people.
they've got a pile trimming in front of them, they're putting it into a bag, they've got a bag open over here. And if you don't have the right environment, you know, you don't want the room stealing a bunch of moisture from your weed that you don't want stolen.
Yeah.
So I would climate control my trim room
Yeah.
because it would have a bunch of exposed canna all day in it.
You know,
And
these
a
are
lot of
luxuries that we have, right? So imagine
times
like
in Mendo, people don't realize
growing in
this, but
Costa Rica, like our
in
guest last time.
in Mendo or
Stefan.
Humboldt, we have a dry season. And sometimes when
Yeah.
you were trimming, the rains hadn't come in yet and it had been bone dry for 8 months. And you'd be trimming in some room and you'd go, I'd put a hygrometer in there and I'd be like, oh my God, the humidity's 15%. I'm like
You don't
ruining
want
my
your
weed.
flower to turn to powder to dust.
No,
after
like
all
while
that
it's
work,
getting
right? You
processed.
come this far, you're gonna let it go to shit at the end? No.
And I don't know
Yeah.
That
why.
is where most people mess it up, is during the cure process.
Yeah.
No.
It's that
Outside
So people
of
got to
curing
realize,
bad genetics.
random tip, your trim room should also, you should make sure that it's mild temperature and mild humidity, not too high and not too low for either,
right. You
because
can't be
it'll
keeping your
cause you
trimmers
issues.
warm.
You got to keep that room within a certain range if you want your flower, you know, your hash, your what have you,
If
to
your
Yeah.
trimmers are
be.
I
cold,
always
tell 'em
tell
to wear a
people they
jacket.
should be drying and curing their weed wherever they would hang out. Right? Because if it's not comfortable for you, if it's like too hot,
Oh,
you know, if it's a
that's good advice.
barn, like no.
So like
You know?
I don't know.
Mendo,
That's a dangerous one because people could be like, "Hey, I like to be nice and warm. Let's
Oh
keep it,
yeah, I guess
like
so. I guess.
Oh,
upper
But I'm just
70s."
thinking
It's
like,
like,
you know, air
Give 'em a sleeping bag.
condition, fucking climate
yeah,
control,
sure.
you know, nice.
But I
you
would,
know.
a bunch of my friends who grow in Colorado add humidifiers to their drying room. So that
100%.
final
Yeah.
third
Oh,
of drying, they can
that
keep
makes
the
sense.
humidity up to 45, 50, 55%
Right.
and not
not
Yeah.
just
like,
in Colorado.
Yeah, we
I,
don't
no,
do
I
like,
know.
that
In
here.
all
I mean,
kinds of
like,
even here, like inland in Cali, it's
this
dry.
is just a standard
Dry
thing
here
that
too.
everyone should do. Okay, like,
Just keep your humidity right.
yeah, I mean,
Keep your humidity and your temperature right.
the
Keep your temps and
You
humidifiers
know?
humidity
use
right, guys.
very little electricity. Okay,
Yeah.
and they're not very expensive. So controlling the climate in your dry room generally involves, at the beginning, you're trying to remove as much moisture out as fast as you can because you're never going to get the humidity down, like when you have all that flour hanging and it's just losing all this moisture, that's when you need the dehumidifier. But if you keep running that dehu, it's just going to over dry the weed. So there comes a point where, depending on where you're at, and like if there's an air conditioner in the room as well, you're going to have to start adding humidity to that room to keep it at the humidity that you want it, so that you can extend the cure, because that's what is
And
going to make better
I've
flour.
also had trim crews where it had been raining for 10 days and it's a swamp and you need to have a dehum running in
Right.
your,
That's
because
why you
it's,
need both.
so it's like something that people don't often monitor, but I would monitor my trim room, you know?
So back to like
The-
trim camps. Do you remember back in the day how we would treat our trimmers like royalty? I mean, there
Oh,
was like
yeah.
the best food, the best snacks, the
Mhm.
best this. Like, talk about some of
And
your
all the weed you could
spread
ever smoke.
you
Well,
presented.
we touched on this in a previous one. There was some trim hills that were very kind and very mellow, and there was some hellish ones that were not very comfortable for especially women. They were not the greatest work environment,
Yeah.
and so it was very dependent on the people there, and the type of people that they would bring there. It's a little bit like trim camp used to be a little bit like, those like reality shows where they bring together 15 strangers in the same house and record it.
Totally.
That's trim camp.
I used to call
Um,
mine summer camp. I'd be like,
and,
no,
and
we're gonna come to
sometimes,
summer camp.
sometimes, running a trim camp, you'd see a couple of your trimmers would hook up and they'd be all happy for a week, and then they'd get angry at each other, and then they're sitting on opposite sides of the trim camp, not looking at each other
Couples are
for a
breaking
week, and it's
up.
all bitter, and there was a lot. I mean, we could probably do shows on trim camp. Was its own unique
Oh my God. Fully.
And there's a lot of probably a very funny stories of, hookups and breakups or this ups or, and then on top of that, all of a sudden you take a lonely grower who might be good with plants, and now they're
Right.
managing 18 human beings
Sorry.
for like 5 weeks.
They're
When
like
normally
just
they're
there.
alone and they only have to manage a couple people, and now they're managing like who's cooking, who's cleaning. Why did you leave the bathroom like this? What did you do? How could you do that? So and so got way too drunk last night and got naked. Should we ban beer for a couple of days? Like there's a lot of that kind of stuff, that went on. And you mix humans. And then the other part of it is like trimming a lot of times is a little bit like meditation because you're alone with your thoughts. You're sitting there, you've got stuff in front of you, you're sort of like,
Unless
and
death metal is rolling.
it only takes so much of your brain power to be a good trimmer. And so for some of those people, being alone with their thoughts was like cathartic or damaging or stressful, or there was a lot of weird stuff that could occur at
Yeah.
trim camp.
That would crack them.
Oh,
But some people
that's-
couldn't be alone with their thoughts, and they would
No.
talk the entire time.
Yes.
Like,
Oh no.
Somebody just put in
Yeah, I
the
know
chat,
that-
running a crew is kind of like babysitting.
yeah.
But I could see.
But,
you definitely have to like look out
It's
for
so
the people you
fun.
got out there. On
It really
your
is,
farm.
and then after, like, who cooks, who cleans, what kind of alcohol or drugs do you not allow or allow? Like
Right.
Yeah.
like how do you manage interpersonal conflicts and drama? And that's where all the funny
And then-
stories
oh.
come from.
Yeah, and then there's the cherry pickers that
Oh,
took all the
yeah.
tops.
No top chopping.
Well, because you were talking about when we first started talking, you said the trim crew you went to, which was like several carports pushed together, long
Yes.
tables. It sounded like dozens of people there working. Most of them probably
Mhm.
didn't know each other or came in small
Yeah.
groups. There's a
Yes.
lot of opportunity for interpersonal conflict.
Yes.
And growers
Yes.
weren't always the greatest people managers. And
Yeah, they
Yeah.
weren't getting involved in like separating out the cherry picking arguments unless they were just smart enough to be like, give everybody their own piles, which had like a mixture of tops and bottoms.
Yeah.
no, there was a
Yeah.
lot of, and that's the
It
weird
was
part
so
about that
intense.
is that was a giant culture that I feel like is like almost like we're gonna have to talk about it on some shows at some point because it's basically gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But it
gone.
was a real culture. And then the funny part is, like from a grower's perspective, I would have like a dep and I would have all these people come together and like I would get repeat trimmers that would come because my place was safe, and whatnot. And like so they would come, they would make a bunch of money, they would go off traveling or have their adventures, they would come back for fall harvest. They would be sharing stories of what they did, whether they broke up, whether they fell in love, whether this happened, this drama, because it would all come out. Because if you're going to be sitting around with people for the next 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 weeks, like, and so it was
Yeah.
sort of like there was everything from like extended family type stuff that went on to very wholesome, cool trim crews to like some pretty unsafe, unhappy, brutal ones that like the growers didn't manage very well and it wasn't very safe in my opinion or happy, type of thing, where you discover that so and so can't handle their alcohol and maybe you have to as an adult ban them if they want to work there,
Yeah.
guys that would be
Yeah.
convinced that this girl fell in love with them and it was obvious
Oh.
and she just wanted to trim and make money and was definitely not in love with him back, but he was convinced that she was the one for him. Like there was all kinds of, and then as the grower you're like, okay, so I have to manage all this,
Some people
Um,
just went crazy
Totally.
the minute they stepped out into the wilderness. It was like an hour behind a locked gate, and that was enough to just make them lose it.
We used to call the people that got weird on the hill the Shining. Not everyone was okay with being isolated. Like, because the Shining is like a family goes to like this isolated, hotel, and you go to this isolated hill, you're only around a few people, you start drinking too much, you get weird, you start thinking people are talking about you. So trim camp could be beautiful, but it could also be very odd. And it sounds like, Billie, the
Very
trim
odd.
camp you went to, did you say there was 50 people or something at
Yeah,
that
they
trim
had a
camp?
big grow, especially back then. That was a big grow. I think they had 50 trimmers on that scene.
That's a lot of people to manage
That's
and
a
keep
lot.
happy
It
and keep
was
all
so
moving in the
much.
same direction every day.
So
Like,
Totally. And
this sounds dumb, but not to get like, at this spot that I had, um I literally would get my septic pumped once a year, because the septic was rated for
wow.
like 4 people. It was like four to 6 person house, but then you get 20 people living there for a month, and it's literally like 5 years of septic use in a 1 month period.
Yeah.
that
Ew.
might be a
Yeah.
lot of information there.
No, but I'm like,
No.
You're always a wealth
so
of information,
so there
but
is,
That's a
okay,
lot of
so you want to
poop.
say
you're
wealth
really
of
this is getting
information?
shitty.
You want to hear wealth of information? Have one of your trimmers come to you and tell you, hey, it's backing up in the shower.
No. Hey, ew.
Why?
You have to
Ooh.
emergency
All right,
call the
I think we're
septic
about to
pump.
mute Notso Dog. Here we go. Well,
No.
let's, I don't know what shit is coming out of Notso. I'm muting you. I muted you. I'm only kidding.
Or if you lived really random, it
Oh
could
my
be
God.
outhouses.
Yeah.
It could be very it could be a
Oh
hole
yeah,
in the
it could be
ground.
people just digging their own morning holes for their poops
Yeah.
or whatever, whenever they poop. Now that we're talking
Yeah,
about poop,
it
I guess.
wasn't it
Yeah.
wasn't like it wasn't like a lot of these hill grows had a lot of infrastructure.
I think I'm gonna change the topic from poop to um, we didn't call it trim camp, but we called the people that were coming to trimmigrants,
That's a
and
very
Yeah.
that's a
pejorative
common
term.
term.
Yeah.
And well, the crazy thing is like it could be anywhere from like people from Sonoma County going up to Mendo for the weekend, to make some side hustle trimming, to people from other
From Spain,
countries. Yeah,
Germany,
exactly. I
Belgium,
you know
Hmm.
they people would
France.
tell me that they would come just for the trim season, then bring all that
Yep.
money home, and they're crushing for an entire year because like the difference of the value of the money, so like, and at that point we used to be able to pay trimmers good money. Like
People
we
were
really
getting paid
wanted people
over
that were
200
reliable that
pounds.
would come. They'd make a couple $100 a pound.
Yes, that's such
Trim a
good
couple
Yeah.
in a
money.
day.
People
That
They'll
were
was
just
fast trimmers.
standard.
So some
bring that
people
money.
would make easily $300-400 a day,
Or more.
and
Yeah,
they would
if you
Yeah.
could trim five
With
pounds
no
a day.
expenses.
and no and live, but it was, I mean,
Yeah.
there was a whole culture based around that, but it was
Hmm.
it really was. And imagine Billie goes to this trim camp, and these growers, they've have 50 human beings on their property that they have to manage their moods, their partying, their relationships. Perhaps they're trying to get a certain amount of trimming done every day. They have to have food, water, TP, paper towels, this,
And
that,
this
what
is
have
after
you.
you've pushed you're
And
so hard for 10, 11 months in a row, and now you're dealing with this at the end of the line, right? It's like,
yeah. And the growers would have to show up in a disguise. Because they didn't want anybody to know them. Because it's so many people. That's such a risk. It's so many people. So
yeah.
I remember, I think on that scene, the guy wore I found out later because I made hash through the year, but he had a wig that had dreads and he would wear just different disguises so the trimmers wouldn't know who he was.
That's
Yeah.
cool. I love
Or they
that.
sometimes people like that would hire like a trim manager to
Or-
deal with all the
yeah.
people, so they could remain somewhat
Oh, yeah.
anonymous,
There
and
had to
people
be.
really wouldn't
Smart.
know who was
Yeah.
who, you know
Yes.
because it
Yeah.
was sketchy. Because then
Yeah.
all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're doing this like you know, quasi legal thing perhaps, and you have to invite a bunch of strangers, which
Yeah.
is why I liked
Yeah.
treating trimmers really nice, so that you would get repeat trimmers, so that you
Yeah.
get to know them over time, so that they would like you and you could build trust. And then it was a little bit more like extended friends and family, and not like
Hmm.
I have 50 people in 3 tents,
Right.
you know?
Which is sketchy, you know?
It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It was so weird. I remember at one farm I worked on, this guy had, oh God, he was so weird. He had aquarium with rattlesnakes around. And like that was he I mean, just crazy. Like, and he had all these stories about how it was I don't know. I don't know. It's just, it got
Is
weird
that
out
how he
there.
like
It
scared
could get weird
people
and
into
could be beautiful. Yeah.
I
this is like
I
a
have
protective?
I have a story. I have a story that
Okay.
if I had any common sense, I wouldn't tell it.
Ooh.
But since I don't,
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
probably tell it.
Okay.
I think it's funny. So I used to be the cultivation director for a licensed farm in Oakland, and they they had their first crop, and we were talking about the trim crew, and I was like, "Look, we have to have comfortable chairs for people. Okay, they're going to be sitting in these chairs all day." Now, I should say this: it was a farm. It was a Chinese guy that owned the farm, right? And I told them that we need to have comfortable chairs for the trimmers because they're going to be sitting in these chairs all day. And if they're not comfortable, then they're just, as the day goes through, they're going to be less and less effective. And the next day, he comes in, and there are these chairs. I swear to God, they are like the chairs that would be at my kid's kindergarten classroom. Like when she was in kindergarten, there were these tiny little chairs. And I was like, but then the trim crew came in, and they were all Chinese. And
Were
that
they
was,
Chinese or were they Hmong?
no, they were Chinese.
Okay.
And that's the way they were used to sitting, was like on these tiny, he was like,
Whoa.
I wanted to have them like have nice comfy chairs with armrests and stuff, and he got them these things that like basically had them like squatting the entire day.
Easy.
And I was like,
Oh
oh my
my
God,
God.
I could not believe this. I was like, this is not okay. But they worked super fast, and they were laughing the entire time. It was just like, I was like, all right. That was a spot I didn't belong there, apparently. It was just like, but yeah, I'll just never
Wow.
forget those tiny little chairs for the trimmers. It's just
Weird.
extreme. So
So weird.
we were just talking about extreme, like the variety of like fancy trim places with lots of
Yeah.
nice food, and to like this was just like these little chairs.
Well, it goes from the extremes, you know, like I can think of times when I had indoor scenes where it was like a way smaller crew and I'm like making espresso milkshakes every few hours and, sushi and like all these things to
Wow, that's the
we've
best.
got overflowing septic tanks and, it's the wide range.
One thing that
It's sauna.
changed trimming a little bit, since we're talking about trimming, and there was a product, and I don't even know if this product is sold anymore, but my friend Ivan made this product called the Trim Bin.
Oh yeah,
And
those are
Oh,
used, I think.
yeah.
People still
yeah,
use those.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Totally.
that product was incredible because it was capturing all this beautiful keef, that would normally just get like completely lost or contaminated with a whole bunch of stuff. And it was also really comfortable, like to just have it on your lap,
It has those
right?
arm cutouts so that it works with the way you're working, you can get your hands in there and get it.
Yeah. So, anyway, Amanda is reminding us that we should focus on our guest stories.
I want to know more about Emerald Alchemy
Um,
and when you got
aw,
into some of the
aw.
you
I
were
love your
you had some
stories.
big accounts with some really well-known dispensaries in the Bay Area, and like what kind of, talk about that a little bit. Let's get into your medicine.
Oh, okay, Reba. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. Okay, so like the first account that I got, I didn't even, I don't know. I feel like I just kind of fell into this, and it was just I was so excited every time something good happened. I didn't ever really expected it to happen. And but like the first account was the Creekside Collective, and my dear beloved friend Molly got me that account there, and the Creekside Collective is the first dispensary I worked with, and they were just so good to me. And and so your accounts are everything to stay in business, and especially for agriculture, because you're planning a year and a half in advance when you're growing
Mhm.
outdoor or whatever. You have to really form those relationships. But yeah, as the brand started to catch on,
Was it the
um
hash you were getting?
I got
Was hash in Creekside
what
Collective? It
a
was.
Creekside Collective. Yeah, you know what? Like, I didn't even really want the people that were buying the hash were the ones that told me it was really great, and so I had no idea. I was like, oh my gosh, and then they were treating me like I was famous or something. I'm like, what? I don't even. I'm like, okay, great, let's go with this. I'll do this. This is
Yeah.
awesome. Like, um, and yeah, so Jeff of the Creekside Collective. Yeah, good soul, man. Yeah, but the accounts, yeah, just kind of what like there was accounts that it was hard to get accounts, and there was not the those years of sales, and a lot of times buyers would bring in their people, and like I had a big account with a huge dispensary at the height of my work in San
Yeah.
Jose, and Elemental, yeah, Elemental, right?
Elemental.
And
They were really
their
big.
buyer got fired. No, dude, and they loved my hash. Like their customers loved my hash, and I'd walk in there and everybody would cheer. It was so fun to just experience that. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
god. And then their buyer got fired, and the new buyer brought in all their guys, and I could no longer sell there, even though their customers wanted my hash, and that happened a lot.
So you
Stuff like
like
that
lost your,
happened,
there
and
was
it
like
was
only so
devastating.
much
It would be devastating.
shelf space.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
pushed
yeah.
you out.
Right? Things like that happened. They bring in all their bros or their guys or whatever. But, I mean, so that's like there's good stories and bad stories regarding the accounts and the sales and
I
stuff.
find that,
Mostly it
yeah,
was more like a family connection, right? To
yeah,
your dispensary that you worked with. Yeah.
that was the original
Is
culture,
that
was how it worked in the beginning, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah. And then as the years went by, people, there was so much competition as well. There was like, yeah, eventually everybody was making whatever form of hash even their flour. So once, like at first it was just we're processing trim, and you would never make hash out of flour. Like that was
Mhm.
crazy. And then like that was nuts. But as competition began, flour prices came down, and then we had all these specialty hashes made with flour that was just grown for hash, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
and what there's a term for that, right?
live. Well, if you harvest it live,
What
it's
is
whole
Fresh
plant.
was
Well,
frozen.
there was the
you're
whole
having
plant
a
fresh
fresh
frozen.
frozen was
Yeah,
like, yeah, fresh
that was the
frozen
first way.
was
Was
like
kind
the
of,
flour.
yeah.
So
That was a
right.
cultural shift.
That
I
was all
think we're in the
tangent.
beginning. In the beginning, hash was made from like you were saying, like the waste or the
Wow.
refuse or
Yeah,
the
your
the
sugar chair.
remnants, and the flour was far
Yeah.
too valuable
Yeah.
to make it into hash.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we got an abundance of flour
Yay.
and we had more than we knew what to do with, there was a lot of flour grown that like wasn't good enough for flour. you know, like,
Yeah.
and so that would just get
It
extracted
was
into
like too
hashish and
larky, maybe, but that was
or
great for
had some
hash.
mold or had some issues or
Yeah,
cultivators weren't that good at what they were doing. So they would polish that turd, you know, and
polish that turd,
take
keep
some
it
C
shiny.
grade looking weed and make it look into beautiful hash. But in the beginning, hash was definitely trim and smalls,
And dry material
Yeah.
too. It wasn't being made from fresh
frozen.
material. When
No,
did that switch? I don't I don't even really remember, but when did we really start using fresh material in hash making out in Cali? Like when did we do that?
pretty late.
Wow. I would say 2015, 2016, that started to become popular, right? Or no?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know the exact year, but I would say it's probably around then.
Later.
Yes,
So it was really later that we
Yeah.
started
late,
doing that. And
much
thank
later.
Later.
God
Yeah.
we did. I mean, because that's amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So good.
It
But
was pretty cool. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder how we figured that out.
Well, I think what happened was when the price of herb dropped enough that it was worth it to do that.
Worth
Because,
taking a risk, worth
well,
figuring.
and like once there was a value, like, because, high end rosin with fresh frozen, that stuff would sell for $50+ a gram. So
Oh yeah.
when you were able to get that price, then it was like, all right, well, this is something to consider since the prices of flour was dropping. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
And do you guys
the
have any
other thing that
stories? Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
I would just say that fresh frozen as the gardens got larger, processing has always been a laborious and time consuming thing, whether
Oh
it's
yeah.
harvesting and
Yeah.
hanging, or deep
Trimming.
bucking, trimming, all that type of stuff. And
Totally.
so, like fresh frozen, as the gardens got bigger, it was a way to pull down a bunch and then sort of like lock it into where it was without having to have all
Amazing.
this downstream, like, space and time and workers and all that. You could just
well,
freeze it
also they
and then
don't
it's
trim
just
it. They don't trim it.
You just take off a
The big leaves.
water
little bit.
leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You,
So it was like, so it was, when gardens were smaller, it really wasn't very common. When they got bigger, it's like I've worked on some big scenes and it's like when you're pulling down a large amount,
yeah.
it's very, like it's hard, you
It's
know?
it's a joy to take a whole greenhouse and freeze it and not have to deal with the other aspects of it. It's
Yeah,
just,
because then it's like when you're harvesting, you've got a harvest crew. Then
yes.
you've got a transportation crew. Then you've got a hanging
Mm.
crew in the room. Don't get too far ahead of the hanging crew. Don't
I
start
mean, or
chopping
what
Yeah.
if
down
people
more
have
than
to
they can
like do
hang.
that dunk where they're like dunking the whole stalk in the freaking H2O2 water
Because
to
they
get
have
the
powdery
PM
mildew.
off it, fucking
Oh,
shaking it. Remember people doing that? I mean, there's all
Yeah.
kinds of steps in there, man. It's like a lot of
But
like,
but yeah, but it's when you're doing a normal harvest, there are different people doing different things, and you can't let people get too far ahead or of
mhm.
one another. And so fresh frozen just sort of like locks it into what it is, and it's out of sight, out of mind. You still have to have
Yeah.
freezer space, and you have to have that kind of ability, but a
And
lot of the big
power,
farms now
consistent power.
are
Really keeps it.
assistant are essentially fresh frozen farms.
I love that. I love fresh frozen. I
wow.
love it so
Yeah. Oh,
much.
yeah. Fresh frozen's amazing. Yeah.
I want acres of fresh frozen.
Well, Santa Barbara is, yeah, oh my God.
Maybe not acres. I would be cool with an acre. An acre is a lot. An
I
acre of
want
fresh
lots
frozen
of
is a lot.
Well, to go back to like
small
like
farmers.
I mean, Sarah
We
Koya is
lost
not with us.
Sarakoya?
She's not
Yes.
with us anymore
I
at the
think her
moment, but
power
Oh, she
went
lost
out.
power.
They're having
but
a
I
storm
will
over
say,
there.
like when she was talking about like corporate interests and stuff, in my opinion, the original sin of California legal was when voters voted it legal. We voted for an acre maximum for any farm,
We did.
and
There
it
was an
got
acreage cap. It was a
It was an
5 acre
acre.
cap.
Right.
There was a
Right.
1 acre cap.
It was a 1 acre cap. You're right.
1 acre cap till
Yeah.
20 for the first 5 years to give
Yes.
legacy farmers a chance to like be in the market. And 2 weeks before the law became law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lobbyists from Harborside and all this different stuff pushed really hard to get unlimited 10,000
This
square
is
foot licenses.
weed
And
family, like inner circle weed family lobbied to
and so
do
they
this to
allowed
us. Yeah.
day one, they did a technical like adjustment of the law to allow mega farms when we
Yeah.
voted for 5 years of the biggest farm you can have is an acre. And what's important about that is if the biggest farm you have is an acre, you're not going to get giant investors because
Right.
it's not big
There's not
enough to
as
be
much
worth their
money to be
time,
made. Yeah.
And so that's what I consider like the original sin is you have all these
It was a
cultivators
bait
or
and
all these
switch.
everybody on this call, right? Is like an acre is way more than you could generally get away
Yeah.
with in Humboldt or Mendo or what. That's a big farm, right?
Can you even imagine a flat acre of sunny field?
Oh my, we no like nobody even
Glorious.
like when we first expanded to a quarter acre, we were like, oh, this is a good sized farm, and
Yeah.
so that really screwed everything because what they would have found out is that they didn't really need all these giant farms to supply the demand. We could have kept
No.
it diffused with a bunch of local
100%.
cultivators, but by allowing these like mega farms to exist right away, they flooded the market
That was the goal all
and
along.
they dropped the pricing and they made it really aggressive and you know um
That
and
was
that to me is like the original sin because even the people that were against Prop 64 that didn't want California to go fully legal, like even the people that voted for it didn't get what they voted for before it even became
Right.
active. It was
You're right.
changed to
Mm-hmm.
allow mega farms, and then
Yeah.
not to be prejudiced, but like Humboldt and Mendo and Trinity and Lake County, we were the beating heart of California cannabis.
We were 100%. We were.
And as soon as they made mega farms, it was like Santa Barbara
San
and
Diego
Sacramento.
or down the desert.
Oh,
Yeah, and
right. Okay.
and you weren't supposed.
Why are we doing big farms in a place where there's not water?
Yeah, and so it just changed the whole culture and where the grows were, and then everyone that was in the former heart of it ended up struggling to survive.
Well, and then like you were saying, they regulated people out of it. I mean, even the people that stayed in it that were up in the Emerald Triangle, then they had to do all of these things to meet compliance. Like, okay, now you have to have a certain kind of paved road going to your property
Yeah.
from the highway. You know what I mean? Like now they're investing in
Oh
all
God.
this
Yeah.
crazy infrastructure just to be able to like have that license. And it was hit after hit after hit like that like wiped people out.
And so it's like, yeah,
Yeah. They
it
just
just
let everybody right.
Mm-hmm.
I just view it, and one of the things like that Sarah Coy was talking about when it comes to Ohio is that what's a shame to me is I look at like the mistakes we made in California, right? And I see them being replicated in all the states that come up later. And these people in Ohio or New York or New Jersey or what have you, they're all fighting the same fights,
I don't
right?
see
And
them
it's
as mistakes. I see them as the exact outcome that is desired when cannabis legislation is passed. It's about profit. It's not about culture. I think it's corrupt by design. People think these are mistakes. They're not.
We're
That's
naive to
exactly
think
what they
that it's a
want.
mistake.
well, you could okay. Let
It's,
me
I'm
take
sorry, that's semantic. I don't mean to like pick
no,
apart,
but let me
you know.
I'll address that one too.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't really have a bunch of sympathy for rich people, right?
Yeah, me neither.
It's fine if you're rich, whatever. But like all these rich people dove into cannabis thinking they were going to get in at the ground level, and now you see all these lawsuits and fights because their money got lit on fire and they didn't actually get what they thought they were going to get. The
Yeah.
state got a lot of
Yeah.
money,
The state got
but
Right.
actual cash,
the state got a
paper
ton
money.
of money. But the actual investors, and you see this with Cookie, you see this with all these different, they're all fighting now because they're angry because they're not only are they not making money, but the company that they have like needs more money from them or they're going to fail and they're going to lose everything.
It's like the bubble popped pretty quickly.
like people like, you'll know this, Reba, but like remember Flo Kana?
Oh yeah.
Flo
Oh yeah.
Kana Flo Kana
Familiar.
raised $275 million.
Yeah. From tobacco money, a lot of it, I remember.
Yeah, and then they shuttered their doors like 2 years ago. They failed out,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Because people don't understand how business works. Companies that are investing that amount of money, they don't care if you succeed or not. It is literally an investment. They want to get in and then they want you to sell your shit and they want to get out. It's not about the product, the love of, it's not about providing anything for people. To them, it's about making money. So if you
It's
fail or
almost
not, it doesn't matter to them.
it's almost like cannabis is going to have a second legal rebirth after all the initial investors lose their ass and get flushed out.
Yes.
And then they have to make arrangements with new investors that realize that the previous ones lost their ass.
That have more
And it
smart
and it's
goals.
and
Yeah.
it's sad, like, because, like, for instance, I don't want to get like all deep into the details or whatever unless you want to, but like, we're having this whole show based on, like, Billie and her story, and it sounds like you were 99% pushed out
She
Yeah,
of
had
the
a
market.
absolutely. Yeah.
brand. She was set
Yeah.
up for, she had customers, brand recognition, and yeah.
Yeah. I
and
was,
and so
and
I
I
know
put
a lot of
everything
people
to it.
that are
Mhm.
our age, or roughly our age, give or take 5 or 10 years, that are struggling to figure out a way in the new world, you know and they have to deal with
Yeah.
people that know very little. And you'd think that we would be sort of like the
Mhm.
OGs in the scene that have a lot of experience, that could help you avoid a bunch of the pitfalls, that have the experience and the knowledge, that have made the mistakes and all that. And it's very hard for a lot of people to find a place, you know
Yeah,
um
absolutely. Yeah.
as this like legal thing shakes out, you know and and so I don't want to get all political about it, but it is like, we went legal in California with the promise that we were going to protect the legacy farmers, as they called it, and we basically yanked the stool out from under them day one.
Hmm.
And there's all these people, like, I can remember I was pretty anti Prop 64, but there was a bunch of my friends that were like, "Oh, we're not going to get busted now. I can have a normal this. I can raise my family." And so there was all this hope in 2017, 18, that the thing was coming, was going to be good.
But there were
And then
people
for
that influenced the culture to make others believe that. We had a natural skepticism against Prop 64, and if you took time to read it, you would have been even more skeptical. But we didn't really want it. But then we had Tim Blake, Steve D'Angelo, and Swami go on tour
Yeah.
up and down the coast and literally turn all the farmers into pro Prop 64. Like they just sprouted propaganda.
Steve D'Angelo, he
Yeah.
tries to rebrand himself as like Weed Jesus. And I am like, you are the Judas of
He
cannabis,
is.
dude.
And
You
he's
are the
Mm.
betrayer. And
Mm.
and all this different stuff. And like, we all told him that. And then the funny thing is that
Yes,
he gets
I
pushed
remember.
out of Harborside, his own company, by the very investors he thought were going to make him rich, and he could sail off into the sunset and own a house in
Mhm.
Malibu and be retired. And now he wants to be the father of legal weed.
Well, you know what else he's trying to do is he's trying to get involved in
Mhm.
psychedelics right now and get his grubby little hands involved in psychedelics right now. So
Well,
I
I
watch
also
out
think
for
he's
that.
going worldwide.
Yeah.
He's going
Yeah.
for other markets,
That's why I call
so
him Weed Jesus, because he's got the hat and he's got the pigtails, and he comes across as this fatherly figure that just
He's the
loves weed. And
Judas.
I'm like, you are a ruthless
Weed
capitalist that
Judas.
just lost, you know? But Harborside is actually, the Harborside group is actually one of the people that lobbied the hardest to get the unlimited 10,000 square foot stacking and got around that
Right.
acre cap. They weren't the only ones, but they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars getting that law
Yeah.
put into place. And that's the original sin of California
Yeah.
cannabis.
That's greed. That is pure greed. Pure
And that's
greed.
what took everyone that had put a lifetime into weed and
Yeah.
put them into a position where it was like, it's almost impossible for
It
them to,
ruined
like,
people. Yeah.
it was very difficult.
It is
Not
the
to be,
greatest sin.
Yeah.
it's the original sin, and
It
it
was
really is,
horrible.
it really is shitty,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Because we
too
had
for
something
saying
really
that.
big.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I don't want, but it wasn't just them. I don't want to like, you know, but it was,
It was
you know,
Swami, Tim Blake, and Steve D'Angelo. They were huge figureheads in the industry, and they went on campaign for this proposition. They convinced people. I mean, I went to a town hall where I saw them all speak in Humboldt, and I watched farmers that walked into the meeting going, no fucking way am I voting for this shit, leaving, high-fiving these guys like, hell yeah, I'm voting for this shit. It was just
I,
like, whoa.
Yeah.
I've been in, I mean, I'm not I wasn't born here, but I've been in Mendo since the late 90s. And Swami, you know, not to beat Swami's, you know, Swami's kind of a late, late arriver, and you know, from New Jersey. And I just think that there was various people that thought that this legalization was going to lead to a lot of money for them personally, and it was going to benefit them personally a whole bunch. And that's why they were pushing for it, and they had positioned themselves to profit a bunch. And I don't think it worked for any of them. You know?
I
Mm.
wonder. I mean, does the
Well, I mean,
Emerald
I know
Cup
for a fact
happen?
Steve D'Angelo was kicked out of the Harborside group. You know, Harborside was his dispensary, and the investors got angry at him, and he got pushed out. I don't
Mhm.
know about Tim Blake, you know,
Does the
or what
Emerald
have
Cup
you, but
still happen?
I
Is
think it
that still a
happens
thing?
in I think it happens in Los Angeles.
I don't think
Well,
it's
that's
even
his.
scheduled to happen
That's
this
his.
year.
Oh, it's not. Does he do
No,
Hall of Flowers, or is that somebody else puts that on?
that's somebody else's
That's
gig.
somebody else.
Cool.
But he did have, I mean, Emerald Cup was the
Mhm.
premier. It was like a weed NorCal family gathering.
It was
You know, it's funny.
fun, I hate to say.
They set the standard for how to do a a cup because they did blind judging, which in the past, like it's the most obvious thing, but nobody else did it. All the other
Mhm.
cups could be bought, and if you won an award at the Emerald Cup, you won it because you earned it. You
Yeah.
know, and so that's the one thing. Like to this day, like all these other like competitions, I'm always a little bit skeptical of how they're judged. I always ask, you know, not that none of them are done good, but a lot of them are totally
Before
shady. I mean, High Times is totally shady, right? Like, what?
before full legalization, right? The Emerald Cup was awesome because not only was it a family gathering, but you could rent a booth, you could meet customers, you
Yeah.
could show them your herb, you could do all this different stuff. It was like
We could all meet
it
up and trade stuff and
trade
seeds and
stuff back and
whatever.
forth and all that. And when it became
Mm.
legal, then it was like, oh, you have to have a distributor's license, you have to have a this, you have that's only legal people can like it almost like when it went fully legal, it was like, okay, we're gonna have a beer judging competition, but it's only Budweiser and you know and Coors Light and
Yeah.
Keystone and all the little original cultivators that would win those cups were essentially banned because they weren't tied to big corporations that were pushing these like big legal things, you know,
Right.
and then you know then all these big farms have to supply the black to like even survive, which is like a whole different stupid thing. But you know we had our own. One thing I do like about from like I would say from Santa Cruz up to northern Humboldt, there was this bubble where we had this unique weed culture. We
Mm.
really all of us we all lived in like in that bubble of weed culture, you know, of all different kinds, and you learn so much about it. And so it's just crappy that the people that spent decades and have the most knowledge and the most hands-on experience, and it's really hard to explain to people that aren't from here, you know, but you guys know this, that like, you know, in that era, it's like most of your friends were involved in it. So you were learning from them
Yeah.
too. You would learn from their mistakes, their successes, their neighbors, their this, their that. It was really like there was a lot of exchanging of information, especially with, you know, hash, grow cultivation, different styles of things. Like there was this enormous resource of tons of people that should have been like, you know, the leading edge of like what legal was, and instead we shoved
Right.
all of us out of the
Instead, we
way.
all are just doing like podcasts.
You know, yeah. Well, you're trying to figure out a way
We're
to
not in
survive.
legal weed, are we? We don't have the money to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
It's so true.
and it's, you know, it's also like, even if you had the money, like we're just morally, like there's moral
Yeah.
differences, there's cultural differences, like,
There's quality control that like we won't cut those corners.
you know, and it's like we're not trying to, like, there wasn't 215 wasn't perfect by any means. There was plenty of people that like were rampant capitalists in 215 too, but there was a core of people that were honestly trying to put good, you know, good product on there. And like, weed legalization might be the first legalization where the product got more expensive and worse. Normally,
Yeah.
when things get legalized and you eliminate black markets, the quality gets better and the price goes down. Somehow we got the opposite. We got worse weed and it was expensive. You
Yeah.
know?
One thing that I wanted to say that I was thinking about before, when Sarah Koya was talking about like legalization and the rights that we should have, the number one right that I think we should have is home grow. And anytime there's a state that allows medical or recreational and doesn't allow home grow, that's just a clear sign of greed right there. Everybody should be able to grow their
Yeah.
own medicine. So
Well,
Yeah.
you the
to me, that's just a
second sin.
no-brainer.
Okay, so beside this, the license stacking, I think the second big sin was not allowing farms to build a customer base and
Direct
be able to
sales,
sell to direct to customers
Yeah.
within their state
like
if they
any other
wanted to.
farmer, right?
Because you could build a fan base for your strains, your hash, your whatever you were doing, and then you could still sell to stores. But by making stores the only place that you could sell through, you gave the stores and the distributors all the power. Right? And we used to joke, I don't know if they joked up in Humboldt, Reba, with this stuff too, but we would be like, these dispensary owners are some of the worst people in weed.
Oh yeah.
You know? Like, they
Yeah.
are oh my God. And
Oh
so
yeah. Well, they could, because they controlled the shelf space, and it would be like they just had too much.
Yeah.
control.
and they
Like
were
what
they were
Billie-
looking at it like,
Billie
what?
was talking about that, like her getting kind of shut out of the market because of, the dispensary model, whereas when you had like a big amount of people that had access to your medicine, and then through this system is what kind of limited access to your medicine to people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not saying like
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying like interstate or whatever, but in California, if
Yeah.
Billy or me or you or what have you had a farm and somebody
should be
wanted to
able.
buy from it, we should be able to like send them something. You know,
Well,
it's like it's the
vilified still. Cannabis is vilified. It's morally questionable. You're right. So it's like
so
dangerous material or something still.
well, and then the other part of it is that once states saw the big money coming in from the big farms, it's almost like they wanted these larger groups to give them money because it was less people to collect from than this pretty chaotic,
Right. It's
diffused
efficient
group
for the
of
It's
thousands
about
of different
efficiency.
people you might have to collect money from. They're like,
Do
what if we
you
got this
recall?
down?
Right.
Do you guys remember seeing
Yeah.
the images of legal farmers paying their taxes at the Capitol in duffel bags of cash? Because guess what? You can't always get a bank account.
Right.
And so you're paying,
Yeah.
people would bring duffel bags of
Yeah.
cash to pay their taxes.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, not to get political again, but banks have a federal charter. They get a
Yeah.
federal charter to do what they're doing. And so as a result of that,
right.
banks don't want to work with people that are growing something
Breaking
that's
federal
still
laws.
Schedule 1, right? So instead of Billie being able to go to a bank with her business plan and be like, "Can I get a
Which I
fair
tried.
loan? Can
You
I get a
did?
fair loan?"
Mhm.
They're like, "No, you can't do that. You have to go to some rich raptor person and
Yep.
get like a very not good terms and basically give them a big chunk of your business because they have banked money.
Yeah.
And
Billy,
so
Billy, you tried to get a bank loan for Emerald Alchemy?
Yeah,
You took
and
the
I almost
business.
got it. There was a credit union in Santa Cruz
Uh-huh.
who was giving bank accounts to collectives because I was doing everything according to Prop 215 with the collective and paying taxes and stuff, but I had just missed their deadline, and some of the local businesses got a bank account there, and that was
Yeah.
everything. If you got in to get that bank account, you were sort of set. But they were conquered by something else later.
there
It
was a
you
there
know,
was a
but it
credit
seemed
union
like there was a
in
credit
Mendo.
union in Santa Cruz. Yeah.
There was a
Oh,
credit
okay.
union
Yeah.
in Mendo and Humboldt that would give you a bank account, right? Because credit unions could, because they were local and only in one state, but they wanted to charge us
Hmm.
$3,000 a month for having a bank account.
Hold it.
So the bank wanted 36 grand
Oh,
a year just for us to operate a
think about
cannabis
all
business
those.
bank
Oh,
account.
and it's way more than that too. So my
Yeah.
fiance used to work for a cannabis bank, and they fully take advantage as much as possible
Yeah.
because, you know,
They, they can.
farmers and people in the cannabis industry really need banking, and they can't just go to Wells Fargo. But like the fees for every transaction are super high.
Hmm.
Like it's just like the most blatant money
Mm.
grab.
A-
You
And
know.
as Reba said, once criminals and thieves realized that these growers and these legal businesses had duffel bags full of cash
Yes.
and they could break into their facilities and maybe the police wouldn't be super protective, it
Yeah.
became this weird thing where it was like, we're going to break in. We know we're not going to get chased by the cops. We can steal from you. They don't really care.
Yeah.
And you have to drive all this cash around.
Just double fucked.
And
Hmm.
when you're licensed cannabis business, you're not allowed to have like
Guns
weapons. Yeah. So like
Yeah.
under
these
tie.
armed criminals come in saying these guys have no guns. The police aren't going to show
Hmm.
up. In Sacramento, I was watching the Mango. He was talking about how like his place would get busted like a couple of times, like not busted, like robbed, like a couple of times a month. And the same people would be like going down every single street, and just robbing them all
Because
with
there
It
was
no.
happened in
no
Oakland too,
protection.
Yeah. Well, that was
you know.
happening during COVID, I think.
Hmm.
In Sacramento, I think it continued way beyond that. But I was actually working in Oakland during COVID, and it was crazy because they were breaking into all the dispensaries, all the grows, and the police couldn't do anything about it.
Well, they didn't want to.
I mean, it would have taken an extreme amount of force as well. Like it was like a war in the streets that they didn't want to insert themselves into.
I mean,
Oakland, Oakland can be
if
crazy. I'm not signing
if
up for that.
if the cops have one job, it's to protect normal people from criminals.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying like it was just crazy. And the craziness of COVID, and it was like the beginning of COVID when nobody really knew. The cops were just like, yeah, I'm not fucking with this. It's not worth it.
Hmm.
You
I mean,
know?
I guess we could say
Oakland
in
has
closing to
Oakland has
that,
like such a need for more police. Like they're recruiting and recruiting and recruiting, and nobody wants to be a policeman in,
Wow.
in Oakland.
you could just say there's a giant amount of people in California cannabis that got into the legal thing very hopeful, maybe with reservations, but very hopeful. And a lot of them got pushed out, and a lot of the
Mm.
best people in cannabis got pushed out. And it's tough because it's like you don't want to hand over. A lot of big cannabis businesses have like a front person that's actual like an OG in the scene, but it's really owned by investors.
Right?
And the
Mm.
person that's the face of the business has some small percentage of the business, you know, and it's really just a front for a takeover. And so
Yeah.
it's been a struggle, and there's a lot, you know, most of my friends struggle. And that's
Wow.
unfortunate because there's a lot of good people in Canna that don't deserve to struggle, and also have a
Mhm.
lot of experience and knowledge that they could bring to the Canna space, and they're not, you know, and they got to find
Yeah.
different things. And one thing about Humboldt and Mendo, if I'm going to talk about home for a minute, is that when I got here, this place was dirt poor. Logging had
Mm.
collapsed, and
Mm.
like there wasn't very much industry, and there was a lot of poverty, especially in the rural areas. And
Mm-hmm.
215, it's like it was the rising tide that lifted all the boats. So much money came into these towns. So many crappy properties got fixed up over time, remodeled, new houses built on them, roads improved, all this different stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
all this positive stuff happened as a result of all that money flowing through our area. And I also believe, and this might be just my own prejudice, but I also believe, having smoked weed my whole adult life, that Humboldt and Mendo and Trinity and this area of California overall has a lot better chance of making nicer weed and nicer hash than where the majority of it is being grown at the moment. This is a
Yeah.
primo region, climate wise, sun wise, all that. This is probably, like, just by the chance, this is one of the best areas in the country to grow cannabis. Our little zone. It's definitely nicer than Sacramento or Santa Barbara or the desert of SoCal. You know, it is, and it's like, and it's a shame that it's almost become an afterthought.
I want to get back into that zone. Like, I
Yeah.
want to know what you were first growing when you had your spot in Mendo, I think, and you were producing hash out of your greenhouse. Like, what were the cultivars you were growing back then? What was it?
That, are you asking me?
Yeah,
Me?
yeah,
Hmm.
Reba? Oh,
yeah, Billy. Because
okay.
you were
What
in the sweet spot,
was
in
I growing? Um, Let me think. I had, let's see.
I remembered you almost, I think you were telling me it was,
I
you
had a great
potentially were growing
orange.
that
There was a
fancy
good,
gray headband
really cool orange
Bandido.
strain. There was, oh, Holy Headband. I didn't grow
Mhm.
that though, but I that was some of my favorite hash. Travis grew that. A colleague. There was Holy Headband. Love that. I mean, my strain. So there was this really great orange strain that I freaking loved. Where did I get
Mhm.
that? I don't know. Sorry, you guys.
Okay.
Uh there was the Three Kings strain that I loved.
Mhm.
That was kind of there
Okay.
was I what
Looks like Sarah Coyle
I
is coming back on.
oh,
She's
Sarah
back.
Quinn, you're back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes.
drove into town where we still have areas of Appalachia in 2026 where cell phones don't work. So I
Yeah.
had to drive into town, and I'm
Cool.
over at our new place where we have power. We lost power. We're getting really high winds today, so that's why I had to drive away, come over here.
We're
So you guys
glad
are
you
talking
did it.
about favorites, or are we talking about herb that Billie grew?
We're trying to,
We
yeah, I was trying to dig into her brain on like what she was first cultivating back then for her hash and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where in Mendo is
Well,
your
I got
greenhouse?
I built I did a grow in Ukiah a couple different years in different places. There was I first started growing CBD. It was in Mendocino, you know. There was a few different areas that I grew there, and then I also grew in Santa Cruz. Um Yeah. So I learned, yeah, so there's like this great difference between the more coastal growing
Oh,
and
yeah.
then Mendocino, middle and Mendocino growing totally different. And I'll say I like the coastal weed better. The cooler temperatures. I don't know. That's just, I
It's like
think the
seems
terpenes
different. Yeah.
were affected, they were nicely, or definitely you'd get smaller yields, but the terpene quality seemed to be the highest on coastal cannabis. I don't know. Love to hear what
I
you think.
agree. I agree with you.
So
I think it can vary, but I do think that the difference between daytime and nighttime temperature in large parts of Humboldt and Mendo really bring out quality in cannabis. It might be 100 or 95 degrees that day, and then the
yeah,
fog and the temperature rolls in, and it might get down to 55 degrees at night, or even colder.
Mhm.
And so, and it's interesting to me because a lot of people think climate is climate, but in Santa Cruz or in Humboldt or in Mendo, what ridge you were on, how close you
Oh,
were to
yeah.
the coast,
yeah,
could have a vast difference in temperature. You could be above the fog, you could be smack dab in the fog,
Oh, yeah.
and that cold air coming off the Pacific Ocean, I
The
think is one of the
micronutrient,
secret.
like,
It's one of the secret sauces that
oh,
makes
yeah.
our area, one of the best places to grow weed, is
It's like a
because like when you get
foliage.
back into like Grass Valley or some of those really inland places,
Mhm.
it stays hot
yeah,
and dry.
Yeah.
And we
yep,
have all this moisture that rolls off the Pacific every single night.
It's like a
And you can be
humidifier.
too low or too close, and you could be socked into fog, which isn't good.
Mhm.
But you
yeah,
can start, but 3 4 o'clock in the afternoon the winds kick up, and you can start to feel the shift in the pressure as the coast sort of like sucks in that air towards inland. And
And that
depending on where
pressure
you
affects
are,
like the flow, of the saps in the plant. It's like,
and so there's banana belts in that, even amongst like the fog zones. Like, I mean, I had a buddy in Comchi that lived up pretty high, and you could walk out in the morning at 7 a.m. with a cup of coffee, and the whole valley was banked in fog, but we were above it. And
wow,
it was just bright and sunny, but you'd still get that coolness. You'd still get that moisture,
mhm.
And I feel like that temperature difference and that moisture content
Yeah.
helped the plants.
It
I
does
feel like
something to
it,
absolutely.
preserve the it like
Mhm.
it
That's what I'm
it
talking about.
preserves the cannabinoids in some way. It locks them in a different way than if it's constantly hot.
and it's weird in the sense that, like, when you're growing a little bit inland in Mendo or Humboldt or something, it's like, a lot of us would get up super early and try to get all of our work done by 10, 11 in the morning because it was going to bake, and you might be
Yeah.
out there at 6,
Hmm.
6:30 in the morning with a hoodie on. It's 52 degrees. It's cold, and this and that. It's a little whatever. And then by
Mhm.
1 o'clock, it's 97 degrees and bright blue
Yeah.
sky and just humming along,
Mm,
and I do think that 40 to 50 degree temperature shift between day and night brings out quality in weed.
I,
mhm.
100%.
I think that
Definitely. Now, the new indoor cultivators I know that are making that happen on purpose just to get frostier weed at the end of their grow. They'll
Mm.
like drop the temperature 20 degrees and then drop it 20 degrees again, and it brings out this like white frost that is so common with
Oh,
all the
wow.
cookies and thing. And it's a similar concept to like sap in plants, like what Reba was mentioning, because the sugar comes out when they have that big temperature
There's
switch.
like it
I
creates
could
a
definitely
pressure
see that
independent.
affecting.
Sarah
And
Coy, you
the
gotta
other thing
turn
I
your
should say
screen.
Hmm.
too is that they
Really? I
talk
thought
about
I
like
had
with
it turned the right way.
Turn it
Sorry.
the other way.
I'm new
they
here.
talk about with humans how important it is, like in hot areas, for it to be cold at night so you can actually have your body has time to cool down, and that like
Mm,
nighttime being too warm is actually
Yeah.
really dangerous for people because your body needs an amount of time to sort of decompress from a hot day. And I
Mhm.
feel like cannabis is the
Mhm.
same way. I feel like even if it's really hot and it was in the 90s or low hundreds that day, if it drops into the 50s at night and it's got that moisture from the Pacific Ocean, you know, I mean, the ocean is what is it, 55 degrees? The Pacific Ocean by us
It's
is
like
cold.
49 to 51 degrees, although with
Wow.
global warming,
It's
maybe it's
cold.
50 to
It's
52.
not
Yeah.
accessible, you know? And so that weather comes inland, you know, and makes
I
a big
don't want
difference
to.
in my opinion.
I don't want to be argumentative,
Do it.
but I think that where we lived, not so, and where you still live, I think the high temperature can be too high.
It's
It
real
could, yeah.
high.
And
It's real.
you know, and
Yeah.
so like I think some like, and what you
Yeah.
said before is when you get too close to the coast, then it's always foggy, right? So it's
Yeah.
finding
You need
that
to be in
perfect
that perfect
spot in
zone.
between
You want
where
to be the second ridge in from the first, in between the, on the first or in between the first and the second ridge from the coast, but not past the second ridge in from the coast because it's way too hot. Right? It's like, because that's the way the fog, the weather travels is.
yeah. So, but I mean, I just feel like because what ends up happening is then you know you're better off growing in the shade, and
Well,
that's something that I think that you didn't mention is you know in the past and historically when we've been growing cannabis in this area, it was always like under some trees. You know,
the
it
other thing
wasn't
I
in the
should
full
probably mention
sun, right?
too
Mm.
is
Wow.
that when we were growing cannabis here back in the day, the valleys, generally speaking, would get you in trouble. We were all up in the hills, which didn't get as hot, right? We were all up at 1,200 feet, 2,500 feet, you know, like we were all higher. Very few people grew in the valleys, right? Where the heat really baked. They would be up higher because that's where you could kind of be unseen and off the beaten path and like and all that. So like those hill grows and those hill grows would also you'd get the coolness to come in, but you'd be above the fog line in a lot of cases, right? Where it's like if you're too close and too low, the fog would roll in.
Then you get like
I'm not trying.
moldy or
And
just
you have mold
cold
issues.
weed. You got cold
You know,
weed.
you go to your friend's place and it's like socked in fog till 11 in the morning, and they're out there with like a leaf blower trying to
Oh,
blow humidity off their
Totally.
plants every morning,
or
you
shaking
Yeah.
know?
them,
Oh, we
Yeah.
do that
shaking them,
here
you
in the
know.
The
fall.
leaf
We
blowers.
totally do that here in the
I
fall.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Just leaf
Yeah. You just
blowing
got to
every,
stand
you
far enough
know,
back
Leaf-
so that you're not damaging them. You know.
10-foot plants in the morning.
Yeah, and you're out. People are out there blowing their
Yeah.
plant in the morning at 8 a.m. trying to
Oh,
like, and
yeah.
droplets are flying everywhere, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah. That's it.
you know. But yeah, you know,
That's love.
it can be too hot.
That's
That
love,
is
though.
true. And I will say that there's this stuff called agrabon, which people mostly use to like diffuse and prevent from frost. When things
Mm.
got a little bit more open and I would do these hoops, I could throw this agrabon over it and you could like see in Mendo, like in the middle of the afternoon, the stuff in the full sun would kind of like hunch over and you could almost see the plant like not wilt, but like struggle to deal with the intensity of the sun and the heat.
Yeah.
And a little bit of
Huh.
Yeah.
shade, a little bit of agrabon, a little bit of like if you had a woven poly greenhouse that diffused the light, those plants would be praying and all happy.
Is
Hmm.
agrabond like a shade cloth
It's
That's
like
what
a
it
shade.
sounds like. Yeah.
It's kind of like a shade. Like
Yeah.
they use it in. They have different
or a
grades of it.
frost? Hmm.
It's a frost protector. It's kind of
Okay.
like that white
Hmm.
Yeah.
material, and
Yeah.
they have it rated by how thick it is and how much light it lets through.
Yeah. I've
Hmm.
used that on my like little seedlings outside, right?
Yeah, and so I would get the stuff that let 93% of the light through, and you know it would just give the plant just enough break from the sun.
Hmm.
Listen to the love there. There's so much
Yeah.
love in that. The
Mm.
way we used to be able to take care of our plants, to be like, well, these are going to need the agribon, and someone's out there leaf blowing, and like, there's just so much TLC back in the day,
Yeah.
or
The
cannabis.
one disadvantage to leaf blowing that I really disliked is that I felt like it did visually blow off a lot of water, but it
Think
also
about what else?
pushed with the wind water deeper into the
Yes.
bud where it could rot.
Yes.
And so I
We
was
have to
never
Yeah.
a
do it
big
a certain
fan
way,
of the
right?
leaf
Yeah, you
blower
have to go
because I
all the
felt like
sides.
The
Gotta go up.
shaking.
Yeah.
Shaking is the
yeah,
Yeah.
best
because I
method.
felt like
Shaking
even if you were
too.
blowing off a ton, you were still pushing a certain amount deep into the
Yeah.
flower set where it
Hmm.
could rot,
Yeah, I could hear that. I hear what you're saying there.
Hey, not
you
so.
know?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So what we were talking about, and I'm not trying to hate on Mendocino and Humboldt, okay? But
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Sounds like
wondering.
it.
No,
Yeah,
I'm trying to
starting
be
off
the.
right.
I'm just. Yeah, I'm starting out right. I love Mendocino and Humboldt, but I want to
Okay.
know how much is it that the climate is perfect to growing cannabis versus it was the area where it was able to be done because the people were chill about it and it was remote enough and like
Mm,
I don't think it because I'm just wondering like to give you a perfect example, Santa Rosa
too
is
hot.
is Santa Rosa doesn't get as hot as it does
Compacted
in
All right.
Mendocino.
Let
soils,
me put it
not
this
as
way.
much
All that stuff you
indigenous
just said, Gabby,
microorganisms.
is true, whether it was jaw or just divine intervention or sheer luck. It was the right place. It was remote enough. It was poor enough. It was falling apart from logging. And then it somehow just so happened
It's the right
that it's
climate.
the premier place to grow weed in California.
The
We
soils
got
and the climate.
lucky. Oh,
So
so the
that's
other thing I should
another
say
way
about
that Athens
Cool.
is the Humboldt of the East Coast
one thing
here
I
in
should say,
Southeast Ohio.
All right, tell
because
us, Reba, since we
Yeah.
lost you. Let's
no,
let
Reba
Reba
made
tell
a
us.
killer point right there.
It's our soil landscape.
Because our area was mostly logging, right? We don't have decades of herbicides, pesticides, and various other
Oh, there you
chemicals
go.
sprayed on our hills. Like when they asked us to move into ag land, right?
That was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, ag
Yeah.
land, and there might, and I'm not trying to be mean to ag, but it's like they had all these chemicals that were approved for growing cauliflower or berries or what have you that are banned in
The
cannabis.
berries.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And so I would go to these places and get the soil tested, and some of these places would have 12, 15, 18 different detectable pesticides or herbicides that
Yeah.
are all banned for canna. So the
Yeah.
hills in Humboldt and Mendo where they had us growing because that's where we could get away with it, they were
Pristine.
clean.
It
They
was
didn't
like
have the
forest.
funk.
It was like your property was either on national forest, which is wild lands. So you have
Yeah,
Hmm.
they
all
didn't
of the
have all the
benefits
funk.
of being completely in a natural
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem.
So when you're growing in ag land, which is where legal cannabis sort of wanted to move everything, there was all these different pesticides. Like not to bring up Harborside again,
It's a
but you know
death
one of the
sentence.
things
Uh-oh.
that screwed Harborside and Tom and Steve D'Angelo was that they had this 11 acres in the southern part of Santa Cruz that they were had all greenhouses,
Hmm.
and their first crops all failed because there was an orchard that would do aerial spraying next to their
Ah,
greenhouses for their orchard that was
Yeah.
totally
terrible.
legal for their crop and failed
Mm.
horribly cannabis.
I think that's
This is,
called instant
Yeah,
karma,
like
Yeah.
isn't it?
mm-hmm. In
When
these
I went
and then
out,
like in the wild these wild areas in the forest, you'd have a healthy microbiome,
biome
and
because they
like
weren't
dragonfly
killed.
earth medicine promoted all that. Dragonfly earth medicine would brought, all that to the highlighted the like microbial biome of the entire forest contributing to the health of cannabis. And they even, we'd make these teas, right, with
Hmm.
utilizing the plants that are growing for
So
and extract for
Mhm.
yeah, fertilizer out in the
so
Right.
forest. Just yeah.
So
Gabby is right
that's like
in
truly regenerative right there, right?
in that
Mhm.
Gabby is right in that we got lucky.
We did all of this, it
Our,
all
Mhm.
lined up.
it all lined up for us.
We had
It
all
all
of the
lined up
right
well for us.
variables
And it's
socially and
yeah.
geographically and
And I've grown in a number of different places throughout California and in other, like this zone right here.
yeah.
it's the good zone.
Dude,
It's the good
seriously,
zone. It just is.
it
I
is.
like, I'm not saying
You
you can't grow good weed other places. That would be silly to say that, but
you
we
just have to
have,
work less harder to create the right environment if you're in the right zone to
well,
grow.
one thing that should be said about like this state by state model that's important to note is that because America is so big, we tend to grow crops where the climate suits the clothes, right? So it's like we grow all these potatoes in Idaho because that's where it suits it. We grow all this maple in New England because that's where it suits it. We grew citrus in Orange County or Florida because that's where it suited it, right? And we figure out where the climate, where the, you know, where the sun and the humidity and the this and the that, something like I think 60 or 70% of like our leafy greens and our veg and our like strawberries and stuff come from Monterey County.
Yeah, the
Why? Because
Central
it's
Valley.
springtime all year there. The climate
Mm.
suits the crop.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really haven't done that yet. We've basically put the crop where like local and municipal people have decided to be more friendly or less friendly, you know, type of thing. And we haven't been able to decide, well, where's the best going to come from naturally?
In
And we
Ohio, they
just,
won't let you grow cannabis outside.
What?
None of the farmer. Yeah, isn't that insane?
Oh
Wait.
None
my
You
of the
mean like
God.
farmers.
legally? If you're a
I
legal
think
Wow.
that's
Yeah,
I
well,
think
like
that's a
you can
common
do
thing in
your
a few
home
states.
grow. Your home grow can be outside, but your
okay,
like
but
regulated
legal.
crop cannot be, right? And it's like
That's
we're
because people
wasting
are
all
afraid
this
of the smell.
sunlight, you know, and then we're using all this electricity, and it makes no sense to not
People
have
probably want me
sun-grown
for that.
cannabis.
They want to
So,
make money off of power.
so hey, getting back to Billy, and maybe
Mm.
I missed some of this, but I was just thinking about like when you were growing your herb or oil, were you growing outside, and what were the conditions like where you were growing your herb?
Yeah, I was always growing outside. I did a lot of light dep and full
Yeah.
sun. But yeah, light dep and full sun. And yeah, was always outside. I was a terrible indoor grower and wasn't into it. It was, yeah, just kind of. I figured it seems like you're kind of either or. Yeah,
You're
but
indoor or outdoor kind of thing. Like,
hash
yeah,
isn't,
both
right.
in one.
hash isn't my primary world, but my friends that it is,
Yeah,
they tend to tell me that the sun grown greenhouse or dep or whatever cannabis, the sun tends to make better hash.
It produces more
yeah,
resin. You
It
produce
just like whatever
more
the light
Yeah.
itself, the balance
trichomes.
of the light,
Natural.
you know, all that, it
the
just
Yeah,
tends
flavor,
to,
the
yeah.
terpene.
yeah, it just,
Yeah,
it, so like
it's true.
bringing up the Emerald Cup again. Some of my friends who won awards there told me all the best hash that gets entered and wins is all the light is the sun
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
every year.
yeah,
What
It
wins
is.
is the sun, you know, hoop house grown, dep grown, greenhouse grown, full outdoor. There
You
was
know,
not people winning year after year that were getting their material from indoor.
but some of that is only just because of the sheer volume that you can produce outside compared to inside sometimes, you know.
I don't know. That could
Mhm.
be true, but I will say my experience with hash people is that um like what they would enter would be the best that they could make.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They were trying to enter because what would happen is if you won the Emerald Cup in those years,
Mm-hmm.
you would get a bunch of sales afterwards.
Yeah,
It would
it
really
really
help your
meant
brand.
something for
If
sure.
you
It really
brought
did.
home if you brought home Emerald Cup first, second place, what have you, like it was going to help your brand. And so they would
Yeah,
enter the best that they could grow into that, the best hash they could make, and part of it was to drive sales afterwards. And what
Oh
they
yeah,
entered
yeah,
was sungrown, you know, and they didn't enter it because there was more of it. They entered it because they thought they would win with it.
definitely. But I still think that you
yeah,
could make hash. It takes a lot of material to make hash. That's all I'm
It
saying.
does.
So, you know,
I
it's
don't
easier to
think that
produce more
indoor is
material
crappy.
outside.
I don't think that indoor is crappy by any means.
Because I've competed, I've sold my hash on the, you know, the head stash market, right? hash made from indoor resin and hash made from outdoor resin, and both, it's the same amount of amazingness, right? So it's kind
Okay.
of like, because I only had to, it was like a smaller amount I was trying to
Sure.
sell. So it was easier to do at that point. But I think it's more that we just see more of the outdoor resin being made into hash because it makes more financial
Financial
sense. But I
sense.
do agree with you, it makes beautiful resin, but I don't actually know if it's any necessarily better per se for hash. I'm not sure about, if I agree on that. That's
So
no big deal.
I I don't shout out too many brands, but Earl Hill. And the reason why I'm mentioning them specifically now is because they grow everything outside, all in the ground. Everything that they
That's in
grow,
Neelan.
everything that they grow is fresh frozen, and it's all a single source product. And I think the stuff is better than anything else that I've gotten from anyone. And I think the biggest thing is their expertise in the processing, in the making of the hash, right? Because
Every step
once,
really
yeah,
matters.
well, it's kind of like when we talk about drying. Once you cut your plants, that's when you have every opportunity to fuck it up. So in every step of hash making, that's when you have an opportunity
Everything. I mean, it's
to
when you
to fuck it
decide to
up.
harvest. Like some people can't make a good hash, so they always harvest early, so the color turns out right in the end because they don't know what the hell they're doing. Right? So it's like every single part has to be done with expertise, right? And like Earl Hill has that for sure.
Ooh, awesome.
One of the things I like about Earl Hill is that Gabby just smokes it all show long until he's
Look at Earl.
basically a giggling mess after about 3 hours in. And
Today,
I don't.
particularly because we were with Billie, I was like, I'm definitely gonna just smoke some hash
Yeah.
today.
Yes, so good.
So
So, I think one point that we
I'm
haven't really
proud.
touched
I'm
on,
proud.
because we're talking about
That's
Billy's work with
beautiful.
her tinctures and your
Yeah,
medicine.
Koya.
with
Um,
CBD,
Oh,
what
Yeah, I
about
love it.
CBD? Yeah, we were talking about THC and
I was
hash, but
waiting.
I think one of the things that
oh,
I know is special about your journey is whole plant medicine and the things that are remedied by CBDs
oh,
and the
yeah.
knowledge that you were able to bring to the table about that. Could you share some of that knowledge with us? Like,
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
yeah, how it was different
Well,
I
for you.
love your tincture.
oh, yeah. Okay. Well, when I first learned about CBD, I think it was in 2012 or something, and no one knew about it. And I was super stoked. I heard that it was helping kids with seizures. I'm like, wow, I want to grow that. And um, my friend at the time shared a source for the ACDC. It was, and is that even? Does anybody have ACDC anymore?
I had it at
Does
one
anybody
point.
like real ACDC? Is that
Gabby, do
strain
you
even
have it?
around?
No,
Does anybody know?
I not
You
only
don't
I
know?
don't have
remember
that,
I
but
it,
don't
I
but
don't
think
have any CBD
yeah,
genetics.
the
the
lemon G has a
ACDC
lot
I
of,
was
have that
has a high
ACDC.
CBD content. Lemon does.
okay. Yeah,
hmm But
yeah. And
yeah,
then there was like the sour tsunami. Who was the
Yeah, I
band that
remember
that
Sour
that,
Tsunami.
that sour tsunami?
Mm-hmm.
That was a CBD that came out of Mendocino. Was it Mendocino or Southern Humboldt? Was it
I know
Southern
my friends
Humboldt
in Southern
Collective?
Humboldt, yeah, we're growing it. I don't know where
Southern
it came
Humboldt.
from.
Yeah. So that was another one. But yeah, I mean, nobody would grow CBD strains back then because they didn't know how to make money off of them. They weren't worth
right.
anything. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll try it. I want to grow this stuff because it's so medicinal.
hmm
And yeah, so I don't know, you guys. I just grew it, and it did great. I made I the decarb technique was the key, and it took me a while to figure out how to decarb it properly, and going back and forth and testing it and see how far it was decarbed without losing the integrity of the terpene quality and the resin of the plant. And
hmm
Yeah, I just I
What were you doing when you
and
decarbed?
then what did I do? Okay,
What does
yeah,
that
there was
mean? Like, yeah, how did you do that?
so I decarbed the material dry. The would I would grind the flour in a blender and spread
Hmm.
it at a certain thickness over a baking sheet
Yeah,
and heat it for a certain amount of time,
right.
for a certain amount of thickness,
Yeah,
at a certain temperature,
yeah.
right? And that was like my secret, s- yeah,
And that makes it
recipe.
basically active, like so that
So
you would feel the effect right away, right?
yeah, because it's like THCA would be unheated material, and then
Hmm.
THC is what is gives you unlocks the cannabinoids to
Hmm.
interact with your biology. So and CBD, right? Same thing. CBDA, or you decarb it for CBD for people that don't know. Yeah.
Oh, cool, cool, cool.
And
So
then
it goes to
this
CBDA. I didn't even know that.
CBD, yeah, CBD. So you got to decarb it,
Yeah.
CBD, and then that would be the chemical that would gosh, I haven't talked about this in so long. What shoot. Uh, but I mean that would be the chemical your body would need to relieve the seizure disorders, right? And I remember working with this one doctor when when I first started doing that, and she had patients that we were directly giving this, that like children giving this CBD to, and I have emails from families that said, you changed our family, you changed our life. And
Yeah.
even and it was just profound. I felt so, I was like, wow, I'm
It was,
actually like doing something here, and then yeah, and so that, and using the alcohol, like there was all these different forms of CBD. Once people got their decarb method down, there was like, everybody wanted the oil, but the oil wasn't as so it would be CBD materially infused in some type of olive oil or coconut
oh
oil or
yeah.
something,
Hmm.
because the dispensaries didn't like the alcohol. But the alcohol was, I made the alcohol tincture, and that was
Yeah.
that it worked the best. It provided the most relief for these disorders. So I did that, and I got a lot of dispensaries wouldn't carry that tincture because they were afraid of having alcohol product in their dispensary.
Weren't you
Or
using
at least
like
that's what
it
they
was like
said.
a grape? It was like 100% grain roasted
Yeah.
grape,
From
like
the
organic grape
distillery in
alcohol.
Oregon. That
Yeah.
distillery in Oregon has organic alcohol, and I think they're called the Organic Alcohol Company now.
Hmm.
I think that's
That's
what
cool.
they're super high quality. They were very small when I started making tincture and ordering their organic. I was just trying to make it all groovy,
It was, yeah, it was
Yeah.
super high quality. I recall
So
even
high
there was
quality.
a time you would do consults with people on, like you even talked to my dad, my dad struggled with cancer, and you consulted with
Yeah,
him,
I love that. I love talking
became
to your
his
dad.
medicine
Yeah.
woman for a minute there, and he used your
Yeah.
medicine all the time and
Yeah.
swore
I
by.
was totally. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that was where my heart was. I just, yeah, that felt so good to be, you know, creating something that really helped people, and that was super exciting, right? Yeah. Yeah. What else? Oh yeah, like
I've had a lot of
I
people
when
tell
I
me
first
that.
made
Hmm? Go ahead. Sorry.
oh god
I was
my
just
first
thinking about.
tinctures, I didn't cut the that alcohol at all. And
Oh, it
so
was strong.
it was like a lightning, fire breathing,
Yeah.
um really hard like not very palatable, but it worked. That stuff worked the best.
Yeah.
But it was like, 75% alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get some hot stuff you put on your tongue, like,
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Anyways,
yeah.
so
You were
yeah,
talking about
man.
CBD
I don't
being
know.
helpful with cancer. And I met a guy that had come from Oregon to Ohio to do some, he was doing some research about, medicinal properties of cannabis from before Prohibition. And a friend of mine here had a collection of bottles. And so this guy came all the way here to swab his old cannabis bottles from before Prohibition to try to get a handle on, which ones were more important for menstruation as opposed to something for epilepsy. And one of the things that he had pointed out that I thought was an interesting thing to know was that they found CBD to be useful for fighting other like addictive problems that people might have, that it was good for battling addiction, even with cigarettes
That
nowadays, or, and I wonder if you had those same experiences from people that were using your CBD, if it helped them to overcome other addictions
yeah,
or
Sarah Quinn,
problems. Yeah,
for sure. I heard,
yeah,
yeah, Sarah Quinn. Like I heard stories, just unbelievable stories, similar
yeah,
of just everything. CBD seemed to be this cure all, like good CBD, and honestly,
yeah.
I'm not sure if we have any good CBD around now.
Mm.
I'm sure there is. Like, please, like I'm sure we do, but
Not in gas
there was
stations.
nothing like we used to grow. Yeah, like we had.
And do you think that
And
CBD needs to come from whole plant medicine, from cannabis plant that is like a real, like a
yes,
not hemp plant? Or do you think
absolutely.
that CBD can be extracted from a hemp plant, like medicinal CBD?
Yeah. Uh, it's the lower quality CBD,
Okay.
the hemp CBD. It is absolutely 100% lower quality
Okay.
CBD. Those strains that we had back then,
Mm-hmm.
and were the ticket. They were very, very special. And so there was that one strain from Colorado that got famous for, Charlotte's
The
Web
Charlotte's Web. Mm-hmm.
strain, which was, I believe, what ACDC were very similar, right? They kind of came from the same root of, and excuse me, I don't know the history and who read that and who did that. I do
Mm-hmm.
know that the one that came out of either Mendocino or Southern Humboldt was sour tsunami strains. And the general, I wish I remembered his name. Who grew those?
Was it
Who bred those
someone? Was it
strains?
Ringo or Larry Ringo? Was he?
Yes, 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 yes,
Someone put
yes.
that in the
Yeah,
chat earlier
yeah,
and reminded me. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, good, good, good. Yeah. So, but I heard like when we'd be at a event and I'd let
Mm-hmm.
people try the CBD tincture. I remember this one man was wheezing. He has his breathing was severely compromised, and he came up to the booth. I dropped tincture in his mouth, and he said that was the first time he'd taken a deep breath in like a year or something.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff's
That's
amazing.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's life
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here in Ohio, I know I keep talking about the Senate Bill 56, but a lot of people do benefit from full spectrum CBD products that right now are being sold at places like head shops, and all of those are going to
Mm.
go away. And I wish that our elected would give some time and energy to educating themselves more about how important these medicines are to so many people, because I feel like a lot of people are going to lose access because they're not close enough to one of the monopoly dispensary places where they're going to have the only rights to market these products anymore. And it's a real shame, because just
Yeah.
listening to your testimony about people's life changing experiences, it's real truth, and it's real
Yeah.
knowledge that people need to know about so that we can pull this plant back out of the shadows, because there's so much
Yeah.
magic there,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
I think the core of it
Like,
is that I think a lot of people thought the job might have been done once it gets legal, and I think the job just shifts, and then it goes to decades worth of education and still trying to make the weed culture what we want.
Mm.
Because what we've all seen is that as soon as we made it legal, these larger groups come in and they try to steal it, and they're
Hmm.
ignorant about it, and they
They know
don't really know
nothing.
what they're losing out
Yeah,
on. To be like,
they
they're
don't.
not really educated. They just look at it as another avenue for money or another thing they can control. And so the fight really hasn't changed. It's just we pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to be recreational or be legal or have these rights. And now it's like we have to push and push and push to, like, bring our experience into what it should be, because they'll make it into something that we don't like if we don't fight them. That's obviously what has been happening. And so, podcasts like this, every little bit of education that goes out there about this kind of thing, whether it's
culture, the
culture, whether it's
quality.
medicine, whether it's just the quality that we should be used to, whether how it should be like, one of the things I think is that you get like an efficiency guy to look at weed, and they take away all the little things that made good weed because it doesn't seem efficient, and then you're
Right.
stuck with mids.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of little things that we all learn by observation,
That's the story of corporate cannabis in a
right?
nutshell, right
Like,
there.
if we do this, it
Yeah.
leads to
And
better weed.
relationship.
If we do this, it leads
Yeah,
to
that's
better
it.
hash. If we do this, it leads to worse hash, or or so on and so forth. And so I think that it's like that's important, because it was like, and there's a giant amount of people that are young that, like, need to be educated on it, because they don't have the decades of experience, and they won't have the same set of circumstances that allowed us to come up
Right.
in that world.
Well,
And
and people like Billie that could bring this CBD, that could see the value in something that doesn't just get you high. And then to have all the testimonies of the different benefits of it, I think is like super important.
well,
And I know that she's not doing her CBD oil and medicine now, but I think documenting these kind of testimonies could be a game changer for the next person that comes along and says, oh, well, I'm battling addiction, or my loved one is battling cancer, and has a fear of reefer madness or cannabis getting you high. So it needs to have something that is low THC, that still
I
has
mean,
all the
a lot of
medicinal
times when
value.
people say whole plant extract,
Mm-hmm.
it's like they threw the whole plant into like a grinder, stems and all, and they
Yeah.
just ground it all up, and then they extract it from that, because it's less time consuming to strip off the flower or the cannabinoid
Right.
parts.
What
And
I
so
was
they'll just,
talking about was like full spectrum
oh, I
CBD,
get it.
meaning that it came from like a more of a real cannabis plant that produces flowers that are not in compliance necessarily with the farm bill,
I agree
where
with
they're
you
not.
100%. CBD
Yeah,
and
and that's what I
CBG
was
and all that
asking Billie.
should be
Uh-huh.
bred from drug cultivars.
Mm-hmm.
Should high
Mm,
THC
yeah.
plants into that,
Agreed.
not necessarily from fibrous plants designed for textiles or
Right.
paper or clothing. We should be breeding CBD, which is what, like, I believe Charlotte's Web and Ringo's Gift and all that was. It was like, and the funny thing is, I can't imagine how many CBD or CBG rich strains we tossed away back in the
Oh, I
day,
know we did.
because
Yeah.
we just smoked them, and in our
Mm-hmm.
circle they were like, well, this one
Yeah.
isn't it.
Totally.
This
Yeah,
one
even
isn't going to
with
work for
with the
us.
Rurales.
lemon that
You
happened.
know?
We had one of the seeds that we kept because it looked real nice from the lemon seed incident that would not get you high, and it smelled great. It was kind of skunky, and then we gave it to people, and they were like, "What?"
Yeah. So
And looking back on it now, I wish that I had had that knowledge then. It
Yeah,
could
it's
have been
probably a
like a
high
really good
CBD.
yeah,
medicine. Yeah, well, even
pre-testing.
the lemon is high CBD for a
The lemon G.
cannabis plant. Yeah, the lemon
Yeah,
G is. And this was a fellow seedling of that. And it had, it wouldn't get you high. I
Wow.
don't know what its THC
I just
content
think
was because this was the
inadvertently we
90s.
selected away from it, because without
Because we
testing,
didn't know.
we
Right. Yeah,
didn't
we
know,
couldn't
and we'd be
tell.
like,
We
oh,
didn't
this,
Yeah.
know.
like, our testing was
Right.
smoking
Well, it
joints
just
or
didn't
pulling
get you
bongs or
high.
something,
Yeah,
and
That's
it
a
exactly.
wouldn't
good
work.
type of
Yeah.
testing.
Yeah,
Not
it
We
for
is.
CBD.
Not for
take our testing
medicine, though.
seriously.
Yeah.
Not for
Hey,
being
I,
like, oh,
Not for
this is a
like
1-to-1
seizures,
cultivar.
hey,
This is
Yeah.
12. Huh.
I want to say something about this real fast. We will have to wrap up the show soon, not yet, but I just want to give everybody a little heads up. But what I wanted to say is I've been wanting to do something for a long time, and I haven't been able to pull it together between, the different podcasts that we have, and, life and trying to make a living, I do want to do a show on the medical benefits of cannabis. And Tom, who is involved in the project in Costa Rica, he's going to be our first guest, and he's going to
Oh,
tell
that's
his
cool.
story about how cannabis saved his life. But I
Wow.
want to encourage people to send their stories to us. Okay, reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll tell you how we can share the stories. But what I would like to see people do is make a video of yourself where you tell your story. And the whole idea is, if you take this video and you make a YouTube channel and post it, you'll probably get very few views. But if we make a place where everyone can tell their story, I feel that it'll jumpstart it to a point where, if somebody were to submit their story about how cannabis saved their life, I think instantly, it could get 1,000 to thousands of views. And the more people that tell their story, the more that this becomes a place where people go to hear these stories. And, if you tell your story about how cannabis improved your life and one person decides to use cannabis because of your video, then you've just had a major impact
Yeah.
on people in the world.
I've
So I'd really
I've
like to
told this
encourage everybody
before.
to do that. Please send me your stories, hook up with me. They can't email me the story. We have to figure out a way to do like some type of, they have to post it to like a Google Doc,
Yeah, yeah.
and then
Like a drive, a Google Drive.
right, a Google Drive, and then share the link, because hopefully they're going to be making a video that's going to be, take some time.
I
So
mean, Gabby knows this, but probably the rest of you don't. But the whole reason I moved to
Billie's back.
Mendo was because my ex
I'm back.
had cancer and was undergoing
Oh,
chemo,
wow.
and smoking was the only thing that controlled her nausea. And she went from a
Wow.
size 9 to a 00 because she couldn't hold
Wow.
food down,
Yeah, that
which was
chemo
really, which was
kills you
really
almost.
harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I first moved here, like I said, the as cannabis advanced, like chemo was one of the 5 um, initial like Prop 215 medical conditions you could go through to get
Thank goodness.
an actual like
A
medicine
medical
for it.
card from the
And
state.
so I
Yeah.
had a medical card. My ex and I, we had a medical card. We were vetted through the Mendocino County Department of Health and the Sheriff's
Wow.
Department because she was actively going through chemotherapy.
Wow.
And this is going to sound like this is going to date me, but we would wake up and watch Bob Barker on The Price is Right.
Oh my
And we
God.
would
You're
smoke
so
joints
old.
nonstop before the chemo treatment. And it's just
Yeah.
devastating,
All
like
right.
Yeah.
to have someone
Yeah.
you love be vomiting and losing weight and can't
Hmm.
hold food down and getting sick and
Yeah.
wasting away and getting thinner and thinner and smaller. And
Yeah.
literally, when she started heavily smoking weed before her chemo treatments, it stopped. And then
Yeah.
she
What a
starts gaining
blessing.
weight,
How
and then she
amazing.
starts feeling better because you have food and you have nutrients
Incredible.
inside of you and you're not vomiting all the time.
Yeah.
And so I
It's
mean,
Yeah. It's a
cannabis has the benefit.
miracle.
Cannabis has the benefit of actually doing some real medicine while also just
Mm-hmm.
taking the stress out of like doing the dishes
It
or
makes life
being.
better.
It makes life better, and it's one of the few. It's like weed and
That's
coffee.
it.
You can accomplish anything in your life. You can be a good
That's
parent. You
it.
can hold down a job.
Yeah.
You can do anything you want to do.
1000%.
And there's not very many drugs that you can do and still hold all that down. You know,
That's
Yes,
true.
it
cannabis is
really
one of those
is. They're the
things.
highest functioning drugs we can do.
Hmm.
You can do
Yeah.
those things. So
Hmm.
yeah, there is real benefits, and people, and even if it's not as extreme as what I just mentioned, like my ex going through chemo, even if it's just you have a stressful job and you come home and you burn a doob and it makes you feel more relaxed and
You
more
need to shift
calm.
into your home dimension, man. And
Yeah,
like, it's like,
and then you
Hmm.
end up giggling
Yeah.
and being happier with your kids while you're making dinner or whatever. That's a big positive.
It
You
is.
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that's a big
Yeah.
positive. It
Yeah.
really is.
Um,
So But on that note, I don't want to shut this convo down, but I do have to go get my youngest from school. And I think we're like over 3 hours or something.
We're
So
getting
God, I
there.
could talk to
Yeah,
you guys
it's almost
forever.
4:20 in Ohio.
We didn't hear about Billy's goats.
Alrighty.
Oh,
How
yeah.
about this?
Oh,
How about this?
Goats,
Natso,
everybody.
it's okay.
we'll let you go, Natso, and we'll hear some goat stories before we
yeah,
let
no,
Billy go.
don't feel like it has to end because of me. I just have to go to pick up my kid. But
Okay.
Thanks for
but
joining us,
We
buddy.
love you,
Yeah,
not
thanks
so
for being
dog.
there.
you
Yeah,
guys all
Thank
have
you,
a
Not
lovely
So
day.
Dog.
Thank
That
you
was
so
amazing
much.
to talk to you.
we'll see ya.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Mm, yeah.
I,
Yeah, thank
hey,
you.
Billy, I think,
Yeah.
am I wrong, or were you telling a story about how some goats? I don't know if I heard it from you or if I heard it from somewhere else, but goats that got into the weed, and then or was it cows? Somebody told us, I can't remember, but somebody said
How
that
that
cows
Do
got
happens
you
it.
all the
feed
time. They
your?
love weed. Dude, they
I figured
love
they
weed.
would.
All the
Yeah,
ruminants.
you feed
All the
them the
ruminants
leaves.
love weed.
Hmm.
Of course they do.
But
They
I'm
know what's
trying to
good for them.
remember. This guy
They know.
was telling us. Oh, you know who it
They,
was? It was Breeder Steve. On Breeder Steve's
of course.
podcast, which I recommend everyone go check out, he was telling a story about how one time, like, some people threw weed over the fence, and then the cows ate all the trim and stuff. But then
Oh, yeah.
the cows ate all the trim, okay? And then apparently the cheesemaker thought that all the cheese was
Yes.
ruined.
Yes.
No, he thought it was ruined. That it was
No.
off because there was like cannabis in there. And Bridger Steve was like, "Oh, I would have bought all of
Oh.
that stuff," you know.
Yeah. I would have bought
so
that
so
cheese.
so tell us
Hey,
some story
that's a
about
good
goat.
product idea. That is a great
Alrighty,
product idea, my friend. We'll do it. We can make goat cheese. When we no, I need to find somebody's farm to raid. No, no, it's my goats. No,
Hey, who
no,
needs
but
the
I would
farm? Hey guys,
feed
we can make
when I was
connections
doing.
happen right now. Who needs the farm grace?
There we go. Well,
I
I
used
got
to have it.
goats. Oh, I got goats to eat the leftovers from the my farming and to graze the crop I was growing in the
Yeah,
winter, and then I fed them all of the leaves when we were deleafing and
yeah.
pruning.
So
And it
even
was,
back
yeah,
then you had
so
goats
good.
involved.
What type of goats
Yes,
do
I
you
was
have?
growing, and I have a ton of different breeds now because this business is expanding. But I started with American Alpine mostly and La Mancha, so those are dairy goats, and I've made a lot of cheese. They're dairy, yeah, dairy all the way.
Oh,
But now my herd is up to 200, over 200. So
what?
I have a lot of different goats. So
You
yeah,
have 200 goats?
yes, I do.
That's
Well, goats and
amazing.
sheep. I have sheep as well, but
Uh,
mostly goats. Yeah,
and they live in like a barn on
yeah.
your
They're cool.
property or what?
No, no, I
Tell me
graze. My
about goat
business
life.
is grazing. Um,
Oh, so are you like, so you're like a shepherd out with your
oh,
flock?
you okay, Gabby?
Oh, I'll
Okay,
survive.
you all right? Okay, good. Oh shit.
They spend
Dang
the
it. I
night like
got,
on people's properties or what?
it looks like I'm reconnecting. Can you
No,
hear
you're
me?
good. You're
Yeah,
fine.
I'm good.
We
gotcha.
can
Okay.
hear you.
You
Yeah.
I
might be
might get
frozen,
cut
but we
off
can hear
because it
you.
says
Uh
reconnecting.
oh.
No, you're good.
Okay, so
Oh, it says
yeah,
that.
the goats eating weed idea is great. The cannabis goat cheese is a great idea because do you know that if your goats graze on poison oak and you drink that milk that the goats produce, it will help you with your immunity. I guarantee you
Wow.
there is a
Cool.
quality that the weed would add to the milk. I'd love to
Wait,
research
wait.
that.
You want to hear
Maybe this is
something
my
crazy?
future.
The price of weed is
Okay.
going down so far that lots of growers are just throwing away their weed. So now
There you
Girl.
go. There
selling
you
it as
go.
goat food might actually make
Goat
some
feed.
sense. Yeah,
Hmm.
Goat
exactly.
feed, guys.
For all these
Yes.
growers that are going out
Yes.
of business, they can
Let's do
always
it.
sell it as goat
Uh,
feed. So
There you
I
go. Okay.
I
I'll be your
Wait,
first
I
does it
customer.
get them
I
high when
used
they eat it? Like, do they act different when they eat
No,
cannabis?
dude, goats are
I don't
so
think so.
crazy.
I don't think so.
Goats are so crazy they
Mm.
always seem like they're high.
Can you imagine
Okay?
200 of
Yeah,
Goats
them?
are crazy. It's
yeah.
true.
I used to have pygmy goats, just a couple of
Oh,
pygmy goats.
cool.
Aren't
I
they
was
the
born.
little
Nice.
ones?
Yeah, I was born. Well, they're not that little, but when they're born, they're that little.
They're tiny.
Yeah.
But dude, these I'll never forget watching these pygmy goats be born. And they're born, they hit the ground,
Yeah.
and then they're jumping around in like 5 minutes like crazy.
Wow.
You know, it's like, what
Totally.
the
They're
heck happened?
leaping.
This animal just came out just going nuts. And then, like, within a couple days, they're like doing all this crazy stuff. Like, goats are crazy.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
they can only be trusted the first couple of days they're alive when you can
Oh,
still
yeah.
hold them.
Even then, they
Yeah,
barely can be trusted. It depends on what you mean by
yeah.
trust, you
Well,
know?
to not
I'm
like
not
eat
leaving them
all
with
your
my
Right.
stuff
important
or,
shit. No, they'll eat
yeah,
all your stuff. They'll
yep,
eat
they
all your
will.
stuff at any time. But
Right.
like, they're
Yeah.
not gonna
My
like
friend
hurt
had a pygmy
kids and
goat,
stuff like
a
that.
little one. It was like smaller than my dog, but bigger than a cat, and they had named it Butt. And it would come and like knock the kids down or knock down their stuff. I'm like,
Like
dude.
headbutt.
Aw.
Yeah, it would come and butt everything. The dog would be like, oh, but yeah, they're wild. I can't imagine having a whole pack of them like that,
Do you
lady.
have, wait, what is a pack of goats called?
I don't know.
Are they
A herd.
Or
It's a herd.
a
If you have goats
herd.
a
and sheep,
herd?
it's called a flirt. So a herd.
A flock of
Put in a
Hmm.
sheep, a
flirt.
herd of goats.
Yeah,
Huh.
I have a flirt.
A flurd. Do you
Huh.
have a dog too with them, or are you the one
Yes,
that's like,
I have guardian dogs. I have big, huge guardian dogs. They're awesome.
cool?
They're so cool.
Oh my God,
And
I
and
love
then a
this
border
life you're
collie.
living.
Yeah, yeah,
So where do
herding.
they graze?
I graze for conservation. And for fire prevention. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, and that
In the Bay
business is
Area
kind
or?
of this is yeah North Bay, to like Marin, Sonoma County
If like someone
areas.
wanted
Yeah.
to like get you to graze for them, how would they get in touch with you about that?
Scapegoat grazing is my business,
Scapegoat
and
grazing?
scapegoat grazing. I think if you type, if you Google it, my website will probably come up. Yeah, on a farm. Yeah, like one
Cool.
emu that grazes with us on jobs. So yeah, lost emu.
Lost
Yeah,
Emu Farms.
and yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing like larger acreage, so 10 acres and more, like 10 to 12 acres is what my job size is. Yeah.
It seems like a very in harmony way to like control brush and like prepare for, like
So
clear for
cool.
fires and stuff.
It's so awesome. Yeah, and talk about all the soil science is there. These animals, they revive the soil. Since configuration in origin, they eat the invasive species best. So right now,
It's like they
it's a huge
naturally
job where
know.
we're targeting. Yeah. Evolved all these. We have some gnarly invasives in California, and
Mhm.
we take care of those. Yep,
Cool.
it's pretty great.
I love that.
Huh.
So how long does it take for your goats to eat like an acre of ivy? Is it like one day or?
And it, yeah, like you get hormones like 100 head on an acre a day. Yeah, it
Yeah.
totally depends. It depends on vegetation.
How thick it
But
is?
yeah,
Yeah,
kind
stuff
of.
like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
figure they're
He'll like.
pretty get on it.
They do. They're amazing.
That's
They
very
take care
cool.
of it. They just, yeah. And they're complex animals. That's why, I mean, they're similar to weed in that, like, they're very complex, and each breed is different. They require a lot of, like, supplemental input. Um, very hardy animals, but they do require health care, and I do natural health care with them. So it's fun. Herbs, all the everything herbal, everything natural, and
Cool. Have you
so
heard of Juliette de Barclay Levy? Have you
our
ever?
guy. Oh my God, he's gorgeous. Look at that dude.
Is
Wow,
that your
Gabby's
pygmy
goat.
he's
goat?
gorgeous.
Is that your piggy?
I love them.
Yeah.
He has like
Freaking gorgeous. But
horns. Whoa.
no, he's serious. He's a serious goat.
Here's
Yeah.
his
Looks like a
mom.
mountain
That's a
goat, like the guy that
professional.
climbs a
That
mountain.
is a
That's
professional.
his
Oh my
mom.
God, how beautiful. Oh, she's pretty.
Oh,
Look at her.
Aw.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
didn't even know I had those
Fun and
pictures in
games
my
until they
phone.
jump on your car.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, sometimes they get out and they like charge down a highway or a street, and that's exciting. Especially in the United States, people freak out. Yeah, I was just in Sardinia. I was just in Sardinia, where like the guys and sheep go all the time, and nobody's like here in California. People just absolutely lose their minds if they're
Like, because they have to wait for the herd to cross or whatever.
yeah. People don't,
The float,
Americans like to
the
have
float.
anything out of control or chaotic. Yeah,
I love that you are still
but it's
mixing it
fun.
up. You're still making waves, even
Making
now
waves.
with goats.
Got to do
Well,
it.
I think it's
Yep.
cool that we had a
Yeah.
connection, some little connection that I had
I love that.
goats.
Gabby has
So,
goats.
yeah.
So cool, Gabby. You're cool.
So,
Gabby's
That's
a
Very
goat
great.
cool.
guy.
what
Hey.
did you say?
Gabby's a goat guy.
Goats.
Gabby likes
The
Totally.
goats are cool. I like
goats. Are
goats.
cool.
But
Hmm.
like I said, I don't know if it's pygmy goats in particular are literally crazy. Like when they're young and
Yeah,
they
I
have a
think
lot of
all goats
energy, they
are.
like go
They're kind of crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like they'll just like run around the yard and like do 360s and stuff and like be standing on crazy angles and just like
Hmm.
they're just always having fun. So
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
happy animal.
They're
Like
so cool.
yeah, it's weird.
Hmm.
Like people think like they're gonna butt you, but like that rarely ever happened. They would do it to each other, just as a like,
Oh
but
yeah.
they didn't never like knock over the children or anything like that, So
Yeah. Yeah. The particular stingray, but yeah, they're chill. The goat, and they're amazing pack animals. You can pack them, and they can carry 70 pounds. At least the goats. My goats are the big, so put 70 pounds on their back with their yeah.
somebody
Anyways, yeah,
mentioned
they're pretty cool.
somebody mentioned earlier, and I think I posted it that there was some type of emergency, like a hurricane, and they used goats to like pack supplies in and stuff.
Totally,
So
totally. Yep. Yeah.
anyway, so
Oh,
I really appreciate you
guy.
joining us for the show.
thank
It was
you.
super
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you.
absolutely.
Thank you
Yeah.
guys so much.
You know,
This makes me feel so good to be able to reminisce and talk to, kindred spirits and, people that have been through the same
well,
stuff, the
we
same kind of.
we
We
feel the
are loving
same.
and
Keepers of the
appreciate you,
torch.
Billy.
Yeah.
So what's funny
Yeah.
Thank
is
Thanks for
you.
coming on our show.
I want to say one thing
Yeah.
before we go.
Thank you. Oh,
We thought that Stephanie was gonna have the like best view ever. So we had Stephanie on Women of Weed a couple of weeks ago from Costa Rica, and like outside her
Oh,
window was just a beautiful
it was
Costa Rican
gorgeous.
mountains, and now like you've just totally
oh,
You got
beat it
your
with like all the trees behind you is just like what a beautiful background. It almost looks like it's fake. That is your actual background, right? That's a tree
yeah,
that
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah. Yeah, this tree.
that's
That's
not
a
that's
tree.
not
Yeah,
AI.
I know, but no, no.
Well, thank
This
you
Oh,
is
for
wait,
the this
one
is
more thing,
real.
guys, before we wrap. Billy, you are Lost Emu Farms, Scapegoat
Yeah, or
Grazing.
scapegoat grazing.
And then
Yeah.
I also wanted to let everybody know that next time on Women of Weed, we have Ganja Girl Scout coming in. So she'll be in, not next week, we do it every other Wednesday. So next time we'll have Ganja Girl Scout. And she loves you too, Billy,
Cool.
by the way. She says hi.
I love
So
her.
we're looking forward.
Awesome. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wonderful.
Yeah, we're looking
So
forward to
glad.
it.
She's
So,
so cool.
yeah.
all Alrighty, thanks everybody
Thank
for
you.
All
joining
right.
us.
Thank you, everybody. It was great.
You gotta
Nice
hold
to meet
on,
you,
Billie,
Billie.
okay?
Love
Best
you.
of luck with all your stuff.
Love you.
Take care.
Okay. Oh,
Bye.
right.